Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight, the Friday night edition, as we get ready for the man, the myth, and the UFO legend, Grant Cameron, my hero, my idol here. And he hates it when I say that, but I really don't care. I really don't, because he means the world to me. And for him to come on, we're going to break down all the big things happening in the UFO world for right now. But the best part about tonight, we have each and every one of you here, including, where's the list there, Mike? We don't have a list tonight. So let's just roll it from the list here. We got Race Fan in the gold medal position, Robert Lamoth with a silver. Birthday girl, Hippie Deidre, with a bronze. Happy birthday to you, Hippie Deidre. Happy birthday to you, Hippie Deidre. Happy birthday, Hippie Deidre. Happy birthday to you. And many more. Road Flare, how you doing? Mama Catherine, I love you, my dear. I hope everything went well with your niece. Please let me know. I would appreciate it. Necessary Dialogue, how you doing? Debbie Nickerson is here. Debbie Nickerson will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. All right, there's the lovely and talented Nicole Sakic. She's in here. Yeah, she's one of the best. She is one of the best. Frankie B, how you doing? Ethanol, thanks for coming on in. Mel WD-40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show. Why? Because when Grant Cameron comes on, he wants a nice and smooth show. We need a lot of lube. Grant doesn't like the rigidness. He wants to slide on in and be just perfect. So we're lubing it up as we speak. Thomas Rock, Millennium, my man. How you doing? Tracy Winters, nice to see you. Hi there, Jeremy Jones. Good to have you here. Cosmic Joe, how you doing? And thank you very much for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you very, very much. Little Timmy James, are you joining Major Lee and I, or Extra Small Lee and I for hour 3? Let me know. Destiny Rocks, Deanna Ann, Phineas over on X is here. Phineas will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. T-Bone, my man, Panda on Fire, Jerry Carter, how y'all doing? Tim Mothman and his goatee, 2 separate entities, good to see you. Laura Elizabeth looking lovely tonight. And who else do we have here? We have Lee the Bee, Chill Farm in Australia, and Silent Listen. Good to have you all here. Emperor Penguin, thanks for coming on in. And who else is here? Scrolling on down, Kitty Cattywhack. Good to see you. Jay Truth Seeker, Pam Harris. Thank you for joining us tonight. Gory Tiger, good to see you. And Algaray over on Twitch. So excited Grant Cameron is on. He ran one marathon, 26.5 miles in record time, 52 minutes. 52 minutes. He had a jetpack on his shoes, guaranteed. All right, moving on down. Let's say hello next to Contrary One. Good to see you. Luscious Jules, nice to have you here. And Data Derivations, how are you? Dave Tiger Williams is here. He'll drop the gloves for you anytime, anywhere. JB McGahee, good to see you. Marty Burback, thanks for coming on in. Xanos, good to see you. Parasola, and What in Tarnation? How you guys doing? All right, let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We got a great show. Legendary UFO researcher Grant Cameron is here. We're going to break down everything going on in the UFO world here in just a couple of minutes' time as we are in roll call on our YouTube side and saying hello to each and every one of you. So thank you very much for coming on in. And who else do we have on our list here? Who is next? Wave of Mutilation. Beelzebrad has a devil put aside for me, for me, for me. Thank you, buddy. Bob Thorson, good to see you, and thank you for that amazing super chat as we are running out of time here. And who else do we have on our list? Let's say hello next to Hillbilly Herb. Good to see you. And it is that time of the night. High Fast Hemi to throw those horns up, everybody. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SFAR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around America. Did you see on every major podcast network? Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out, bubble, read the news, fire, check out Wrestling as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon at the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Jive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Jive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a show of awesomeness tonight as legendary UFO researcher Grant Cameron is going to take a look at the latest UFO news and break it all down for us. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will join us for another creepy story. Follow that up. Extra small Lee Strauss will be here for the Cryptid Q&A. So let's get right to it. This man needs no introduction. Why? Well, in my opinion, he's one of the best of the best. Grant Cameron has been a researcher in this field of ufology for almost 50 years, ever since having a experience with what he calls Charlie Red Star. And there's an anniversary coming up on that very, very soon in his home province of Manitoba. Now, Grant has been searching everything from UFO records with presidents in the United States to following the circus that we call UApology these days. And we're going to find out, does he like where this is headed? Does he not? Is there a chance that we may get disclosure? Enough from me. Let's get to the legend himself, Mr. Grant Cameron. It is always great to have you on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How are you?
Just fine, Dave. Thanks for letting me talk to your millions of listeners.
You know, Grant's feeling a little big-shouldered right now because his Winnipeg Jets are absolutely flying high, pun intended, in the National Hockey League. And I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan, and, you know, we clash. Going back to the Smythe division, way back when, we clash.
But in the end, we always end up even out of the playoffs.
That is very, very true. You know, we're going on 32 years since a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup, and I don't know if that's going to change this year. I hope it does.
Yeah.
I really hope it does.
Let's hope so.
So, we're not here to talk hockey. We're here to talk UFOs. Grant, there's a lot going on in the news, you know, and let's start it off right off the bat here, because in a few weeks' time, there's going to be a brand new skiff. Anna Paulina Luna, the congresswoman in the United States, has called for a skiff with Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, David Grush, Congress people and the group from Arrow to all get together and have a powwow in a secret, airtight, sound-tight room, and we're not going to get anything out of it.
Exactly. That people don't realize that when you go into a skiff, that you sign your little name on the bottom of the paper and says you're now under a non-disclosure agreement. You're not allowed to talk about it. So you just sort of join the other side, and there may be a leak or two, but basically, and the most you're going to get is you're going to get a confirmation that they have bodies and crafts, which David Gresh knows about. But in terms of that, where does that get you? It just says that the phenomenon is real. And 50 years ago in May, I had a UFO sighting, and I went from not even thinking about UFOs to knowing UFOs exist. So you have the people who are having the experiences, who know the phenomenon exists, and everybody else who believes. So, and the fact of the matter is that you can believe that they have bodies and crafts, and that you can take all that and all the belief you want and $1, and you can't buy a coffee anymore. So that's one of the drawbacks to this. So, but we are making headway. We are moving along. If you'd asked me back in 2016 whether we would ever get disclosure in terms of the government saying they had actually investigated UFOs, I would have said you're crazy. I wrote an article. I always point this out. I wrote an article in 2009 called "The 64 Reasons the Government Has Decided Not to Tell You the Truth." And I went through these 64 reasons, and it was like the stock market will melt down, people are going to jump off bridges, and absolutely nothing happened. I was absolutely shocked more than anybody that this had actually taken place, that the government actually admitted they're going to do UFOs. So they may admit that they have bodies and crafts, that they're working on this, but in terms of getting the secret out, I always maintain that in the United States, everything's built on fear, and you've got 7 levels of fear to get through. So you have your confidential, and your secret, and then your top secret, and your top secret SCI, and then your top secret waived, and then waived unacknowledged special assets programs and stuff like that. And it's just so deep. There's just so many levels to get through to the bottom that it's going to take many years if we do get there. And then I always look at interesting questions, and the one question that was asked to us, we had the highest level official. Scott Crane and I wrote a book in 1989, 1990, and we talked to, I believe, the highest level official anybody's ever talked to, and that was Dr. Eric Walker, who was the chairman of the board of the Institute for Defense Analysis, a top military think tank in the United States, 14 honorary doctorate degrees, chairman of the president of Penn State University for 15 years. Just even Kit Green said the most stellar resume that he'd ever seen. And this guy actually asked us the question that I ask people, and nobody really has an answer. Is like, so define disclosure, and people say, well, we're going to know what they know. And then it's like the Walker asked the question about, what do you do when the dog catches the car? It says, okay, so when you get disclosure, what are you going to do? And nobody has an answer for that. It's like, oh, well, then we'll know. And it's like, well, that's just curiosity, which is what Walker said to us. He said, admit it. You're just curious. Why should we change the rules and regulations just to satisfy your curiosity? So they'll say, yeah, we actually have investigated. Yeah. Okay. Next question is, are there bodies and crafts? Yes. Okay. Next question is, where are they from? Next question. And it's just going to be like a million questions. And it basically Walker, and 30 years later, or 40 years later, I actually realized this guy was actually right. It is just basically curiosity. Beyond that, and the other half of the puzzle, where I say I'm not about to try to help the U.S. military develop weapons, because now we're sort of on different playing field than they are, and the idea that they're going to use this for weapons, and that's what I maintain. My biggest fear of this whole thing. I'm actually writing a book called "Silence: The Case Against Government UFO Disclosure and the Case for True Disclosure." And the whole thing, I'm totally against government UFO disclosure, because basically what you have in what's going on in Washington right now is you do not have the Science and Technology Committee working on this thing like Canada. You know, this situation that Canada wanted to do a science investigation, and we were told by the Americans, no, you can't do that. You got to do this military weapon, and they're in our airspace, and there's a threat and all this kind of stuff. And the Canadians basically told them where to go. And that's the problem I think we're facing, is that this is in front of armed services and intelligence. And so if their disclosure does come, all this stuff is going to be used to develop weapons. And I'm dead set against that. I think that the message is much bigger in terms of what are we really dealing with? Why did they come? What's their message? And it has nothing to do with weapons and finding a more efficient way to kill civilians.
Let me ask you about the Sky Canada project and Dr. Mona Niemer here. There are rumors out there that this thing is going to go to the wayside because of what's happening in Canada politically, because of what's happening in the tensions between Canada and the United States. And I don't see either major candidate, either, sitting Prime Minister Mark Carney or opposition leader Pierre Poilievre really getting into the whole UFO aspect of everything. So do you think this project is dead?
Yeah, I was never optimistic about it as right from the word go. Is they want to do scientific investigation, but it's just this sort of kicking the can down the road in terms of, well, let's set up an organization, almost like what you do if you don't want to deal with something in government, you put it in front of a committee. Okay, let's put it in front of the committee and you guys investigate it. Like when you get to Congress and the Senate, basically they don't want to do the work themselves. That's why they want to take a contractor and you go find it out and bring it back the information to us. That it's still sort of the toxic subject, and now you're going to have both parties looking at this thing where tariffs are more important, Canadian sovereignty is more important, and it does get pushed to the background. But right from the word go, I said this was going to be a total farce because Dr. Niemer was the head of research at the University of Ottawa. She was in charge of research for the University of Ottawa, and that's where the Wilbur Smith files are. And Wilbur Smith in 1950 wrote the famous top secret memo where he went down to the United States as this high-level Canadian official and started asking questions. And he said, I realized that where there's smoke, there's got to be fire. And he asked all these questions about UFOs, and he came back with the answer that said, I was told by American officials, not people on the street, American officials, that flying saucers exist. It's the most highly classified subject in the United States. It's of tremendous significance to the Americans, and there's a small group headed by Dr. Vannevar Bush. And then he talked about the psionics. The next line said, the Americans told us that mental phenomena may be involved. And so you have this in 1950. So we knew this already. And I said, well, I guarantee you that even though Dr. Niemer ran the University of Ottawa, where the Smith files are, there'll be no discussion of the Wilbur Smith files about the fact that the Canadians already said that this is for real, and the Americans were working on it. There were scientists working on it, and that the Canadians had handled hardware from the U.S. Air Force repeatedly. I talked to the metallurgist who was working for the Canadian government from the Defense Research Board, and I asked him, I said, Art Bridge, I said, how much material did you and Wilbur actually handle coming from the United States? And he said, tons of it. So this is all old, water under the bridge, but nobody's really going to do this. It's just going to be this thing where, let's set up a committee. And I knew what happened back in the day when it moved from all the different agencies, and nobody wanted to deal with it. So what they did is they just basically gave it to the science, what was the name of these, National Research Council, and they didn't want it either. It was sort of like nobody wants to really deal with this, and I think that's what the Canadian project just basically is. It's sort of like, well, let's set up a committee and let's look at this and get better sensors and report and stuff. And you even have the Five Eyes now. This is all breaking down the intelligence. Nobody wants to share intelligence with the Americans anymore. So this is going to be pushed to the back. I agree with you that it's not a top subject. I mean, you even get some of the things that were originally like taxes and stuff. That's not even being discussed. There's only one issue in Canada, and that's tariffs, and basically end of story. And so I agree with you that the government is, I don't think they're ever going to solve it, because the vested interest is, Wilbur Smith said, the fact that no minister is ever going to, and he's talking about Canadians. So he says, no minister is ever going to release something that they have no answers to. It's never going to happen. And I think that is one of the main reasons why there's no disclosure. And that is the fact that they have bodies and they have crafts. But beyond that, I do not believe they really know very much of anything. And that goes along with what Dr. Eric Davis said, that they were all told to give the material back in 1989. They shut the program down because they couldn't get anywhere. Or the story where Bigelow Aerospace goes to Lockheed Skunk Works, and I believe they went to this James Ryder, a former high-level senior vice president at Lockheed. He was friends of Hal Puthoff. He had friends with Russell Targ, and they went to him to get the craft. And he said, "Yeah, we can't get anything with this. We haven't gotten anywhere with the craft." And he actually handed it over. Was going to hand it over, but he said you have to get permission from the U.S. Air Force and from the CIA. And as the story goes, the U.S. Air Force actually reminded them of a memo written in the early 1950s that said, not only are you not giving the stuff back, but you have to keep it stored indefinitely and until this thing is solved, because it's this sole source contract thing they do. So they make an agreement with a contractor, and they say, we will never ever release the fact that you work for us, and you will never ever release the fact that we've given you this material. And so you're not going to back off that. And the CIA killed this whole thing with the saucer, but this was going to be handed over to Bigelow Aerospace to work on. And that's this consciousness problem, which I actually just had a sort of realization a little while ago that people say, there's no disclosure. There's the Congress and the Senate are not being briefed. But James Lakatsky actually tells the story that in 2011, they had a meeting in a congressional facility. And he said there was a senator there. And this was a meeting on the crash flying saucer. And the important thing that he stated was that he was telling the senator and the other people that were in this meeting, it was a long meeting during the day, that we had a craft and we finally got access to it. And that is, if you've seen, Nicole and I did an interview with Jack Sarfati, the famous physicist. I think he's been on your show. And he talked about this Navy guy that talked to him. And he said he's like 99% sure this guy would not be lying to him. This guy claimed that he'd flown the craft, which I've written about in a book. And the fact that he said that the craft that was at Lockheed, that they were trying to give away to Bigelow, that they had not been able to get into the craft, that the craft is alive, it's sentient, and it has its own free will. And it will not let anybody on the craft unless you have the right state of mind, almost like this, what's called the reflective phenomena at Skinwalker Ranch, where Brandon Fugel says, be careful what you wish for when you get in here. Do not have a bad attitude when you come in here. You're going to have a bad experience, because the phenomena is reflective. And when I heard this, I thought that is so cool that the craft, they couldn't get in the craft. And when I heard, then I thought back to Lakatsky, and that's what Lakatsky said, that they were informing these guys that we had a craft and we'd managed to get into the craft. That, and then what Sarfati told us is that the one guy that was running the program for the Navy for 4 years, I think it was, Nicole can correct me, but for 4 years, that he had the right attitude and the craft had allowed him to go into the craft and he got to fly it across the hangar or something. So you see this aspect that I always refer to people, that the thing is 1,000 times more complex than what people think it is. It's just all this stuff going on behind the scenes. But I agree with you that it's going slow, but then everything that's worthwhile is slow, and we have an unlimited time to solve this thing. And the phenomena is actually the one that's behind it. They're the ones that are controlling the cover up. And that's my new book that I just put out. It was called Beyond Managing Magic, Landing the Plane. And that was where you and I can get frustrated from time to time that nothing's happening. And I got a message clear as day. And it said, what are you worried about? Don't worry about it. Don't worry. We know how to land the plane. And I knew exactly what they're talking about. And it's almost like they've done this on 1,000 planets. They know exactly how to unravel this thing. They're dropping crafts. I mean, anybody thinks that they're actually crashing crafts, that they can cross the galaxy and then they've crashed a craft. I'm more in the field that says that this is gifting stuff. I even went after Hal Puthoff when they were talking about these little pieces of metal that are falling. And it's like, come on, the thing comes across the galaxy and then little pieces start falling off this thing. Or the thing that nobody ever thinks about is the craft, you talk about it, you can't bend it with a sledgehammer. But if it hits the ground, it'll break into a million little pieces about the size of your thumb. And everybody takes these little pieces home and they figure, oh, we're going to build a flying saucer now. I think all this is staged. I call it the theory of wow. Now I call it the Jesus circus, where they're just doing the miracles and these weird things that people are just going, what is going on here? And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to drag you and I and everybody else into this little mystery. And we get very curious. We can't get out of the rabbit hole. We're trying to figure out what's going on. And unless there's awe and curiosity, which is what they're creating, like these miracles that they're doing, there's no point in delivering the message. So they create awe and curiosity, and you and I and everybody else start investing all our money and all our time into trying to figuring this thing out. And that's what they want us to figure it out. They're not here to land on the White House lawn and give us a lecture.
We got 4.5 minutes before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Legendary UFO researcher Grant Cameron is here. The fact that, we see all of this political posturing regarding UFOs / UAP, whatever you want to call them, do we see that anything more in 2025 is going to come out? Is there anything robust that we could hook our hats onto just to say that 2025 was an amazing year? Because everybody was building it up to be that way, Grant, and we are in one hell of a long calm before the storm.
Well, they're talking about some more hearings and stuff like that. It's almost like that it has been, I don't know how many years you've been in it, but I've been in it for 50 years. And I know that it was always this thing that was sort of like a drip, and there was always this, it's going to be disclosed. There was actually, when I started, there was a bunch of different statements put out that they were about to drop the hammer. They were going to release everything. 1975, 1976, Jimmy Carter makes the famous speech that says he's going to release all the UFO files. We've always been on this edge of, it's going to happen now. I think it's just going to be a little bit more, it's moving a little bit faster. As I said, I never thought we would get to this point where we would have these whistleblowers, but I'm more sort of dragged into the idea of why are there only U.S. whistleblowers? Why are there no whistleblowers anywhere else? And because the way I always look at it is that the government is somewhat behind this thing, that they are allowing these guys to talk, almost like Elizondo. You had him on very early on. And what was he saying then? Was he saying, we got bodies and crafts and hardware and stuff? I think he was saying, no, I can't talk about that. And now he can talk about it, which means that there's somebody above him. And I believe all these guys that are allowing him, when this psionics thing came out, and I'll just cut out of this, the psionics thing came out and they said, well, we put this in front of Dobster. And I'm going, are you kidding? Like, psionics is not classified? Come on, this is crazy stuff. I mean, you're allowed to talk about this. To me, it's a lot of staging stuff where I think they're gradually releasing this thing, but it's a long process. And as I said, it's 1,000 times more complex when you start looking at what was actually maybe going on and how these things move across the galaxy and stuff like that. And the mind aspect of this thing, it's way more complex. It's not going to be a simple thing where they got the answer. They do not have the answer. This thing is very, very complex. And that's a great part, as far as I'm concerned, of what the cover-up's all about.
2 minutes to go. Without any proof or evidence coming out of Washington, D.C., do we need more whistleblowers? Can whistleblowers do any more to try and blow this topic up in the public?
Well, the whistleblowers are raising it to the general public, which you and I had a hard time doing, because the whistleblowers it's always been the Rodney Dangerfield thing in the UFO community, where we're waiting for the New York Times. We're waiting for we used to have, guys who were PhDs who were lecturing at UFO conferences who were against UFOs. And it was always like, we got a PhD. If he believes it, then we're not stupid and stuff like that. And that's I think what's going to happen is it's this gradual drip thing. In fact, the Carmen thing, we can talk about this a little after the break, but the Carmen thing, there's actually a Netflix series that has been proposed 5-part Netflix series on the Carmen UFO sightings from 1975. So this is this drip thing, and you get Spielberg bringing out a movie, and it just keeps rising. The consciousness keeps rising, and we're going to get to the point where everybody's going to say, "Yeah, I knew." Like dead bodies and crafts. Like people say, we don't want catastrophic disclosure. And I say, "What's catastrophic disclosure?" There's bodies and crafts. I said, I guarantee you, when they say there are bodies and crafts, everybody's going to go, "Yeah, we knew that already. Come on, give me something I don't know." That's what they're doing, is they're raising it so that it doesn't blow people away when they finally release these new pieces of the puzzle. But there's a lot of pieces to release. People think there's only one piece. I guarantee you there are thousands of pieces that don't make sense.
Well, none of it really makes sense right now, because the way the narrative is being controlled, the way everything is kind of going by the wayside, it just seems to be a lot of conjecture going on and not a lot of intriguing stories, intriguing leads, intriguing proof, evidence, whatever it may be. And it's getting to the point where the same olds are telling the same old stories, even in a skiff right now, Grant. And
but that's the thing, is between belief and knowing. You and I have had direct sightings. We know. Everybody else can only believe, and that you're not going to really get people past that.
Well, on that note, we're going to go to break here with Grant Cameron. At the bottom of the hour, it is going to be a jam-packed show full of information, as it always is when the UFO legend comes on this show. This is Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We'll be right back, everybody. Great start, boss.
There you go.
Now we could talk hockey.
Yeah, it's Vancouver's. They got a couple of close ones. We're actually pulling for them because my son wants to fly back to Winnipeg and throw the inheritance away and go and pay for NHL tickets. But I bought him an 85-inch TV, and he's got a swimming pool here, eh? So I said, just move the TV out onto the patio, and we can watch here. And so we were hoping Vancouver would get in, so it would have been Winnipeg and Vancouver in the first round. And now it looks like it's going to be St. Louis. So he's talking about flying back to Winnipeg and paying huge amount of money to go and watch the Jets in the playoffs.
Why not? Why not?
That's huge money, man. It's like, especially if you can watch it on TV on an 85-inch TV. It's like being in the front row of the game. It's like unbelievable,
right?
And the beers are $20 each in there, and here they're $3 or whatever you pay for a beer. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's big business. Hopefully, with the price of the dollar, we don't lose a lot of Canadian teams over this thing. So.
Oh, I'm sure April 28th may bring a nice change to that.
I don't think. I think we're going to be one attack after another for as long as it takes till it all collapses.
Hopefully not, my friend. Hopefully not.
Yeah. But
that's what dropped. I heard something fall.
So you got snow there today in Winnipeg. I think they got 25 centimeters today or something. It's like,
we had about 3 inches today.
Yeah.
It was like lower mainland snow.
Yeah.
So it was all wet.
Yeah, we just had snow here once. I had to shovel, but it stayed cold. And they were all saying, "Oh, it's cold. It's like 9 below." It's like, oh my god. Oh, shit.
We didn't hit that low this year. I think our lowest that we hit was like minus 31.
Oh yeah, but this is 9 below Celsius, so it was that was the coldest we got. But it's kind of, I don't know. You sort of forget about the cold right away when you move here, but here everybody's complaining about the rain. So
I know.
And it's kind of a little bit longer. It's an hour walk to McDonald's. So I spent 4 hours a day walking. So it's like I'm not getting much done here. It's like,
well, that's okay.
I got about 4 or 5 books going and nothing.
Are you up on the hill by the golf course in Port Coquitlam, or are you down below?
I'm on top of the hill. I'm on the top of the hill. I don't know what I don't even know where the golf course is. No, we're on top of the hill. There's the big joke I say, like it's not that I'm egotistical. It's like one of the channelers said, it's not egotistical to live on the top of the hill. If somebody built a hill, somebody on top of the hill, somebody's got to live in that house. So that's what I say to you. Somebody's got to live in the house. Right, like right on the top. I go downtown. It's all downtown going down to McDonald's, but coming back, it's almost all the way uphill. It's like, and it's an hour walk. So. But yeah, it's a new experience. I don't know. We'll see.
Lots of people.
Not really in Port Coquitlam. Port Coquitlam is like a little town. Eh? It's kind of nice. I've only been downtown a couple times to my film buddy. We can talk about that. How he got shafted for doing UFO stuff, and it's like
my grandparents used to have a house in Port Coquitlam, and they're about 3 blocks from the old supermarket there. You know how it kind of turns in and goes down the main street.
Oh yeah.
They're about 3 blocks from there.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's a nice little place. I like it. I saw some of the others, like Vancouver. They told me North Van. I went there. I was like, oh shoot! Like, it's like traffic, and here it's like not too bad. In fact, I can walk almost all the way without really getting into any traffic at all. So, but no UFO stuff here yet. But got lots of offers. I'll have to talk about all the stuff that's Ancient Aliens and Netflix, and there's all sorts of stuff happening. So that's the advantage of the high profile, where now everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants to do movies and documentaries and stuff like that. So I think it's going to increase. It's the consciousness thing, where I think it's been cut out of soul, and it's sort of like we're still going to fall
right there, because we're going to come back in 5 seconds. Thank you, Bob G ×2, Bob, Joe, T-Bone, and Richard. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you are enjoying tonight's show. And we'll continue momentarily. But first, we want to remind all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Legendary UFO researcher Grant Cameron has returned for another great night of UFO stories. And Grant, you are on the ball when it comes to what is going on. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me again. And there is a lot going on. I mean, in terms of stuff that I got lots and lots of offers, and I've sort of turned most of them down. But as I mentioned, there's the Carmen thing is happening April 10th for anybody that's in the Manitoba area. April 10th, they're having a 50th anniversary of the Carmen sightings. And I wrote the book, Tales of Charlie Red Star. That's where I fell down the rabbit hole and never came out. I studied that sightings for maybe 2 years. I was there off and on almost every second day or third day. And so they're doing that little thing. And I've encouraged them to try to get a coin, because these coins go for big money. Even the Falcon Lake coin is going for thousands of dollars now. So Canada's famous for making its little UFO coins, and Carmen hasn't got one yet. So we'll see where that goes. And there's actually a Netflix. It's been pitched to Netflix for a 5-part series on the Carmen sightings and the related nuclear weapons part of the story. The whole idea about nuclear weapons being connected to UFOs. So we'll see where that goes. Whether that Netflix accepts that. And you probably heard the Spielberg movies coming out, and Ancient Aliens contacted me, and then suddenly they went away. I don't know if they've sort of given up on it, but they want to do a story on Mount Shasta. And my 3 best stories I've ever gotten, most bizarre stories, came out of Mount Shasta. And they want to do that, which I sort of thought, well, it actually does have to do with Ancient Aliens, because of course there's this big theory about the Lemurians under the mountain and stuff like that. And there are a number of very bizarre sightings that I was involved with that were there. And so that'll be a pretty good Ancient Aliens if they do that one with Mount Shasta, because that was, and we've even tracked the guy down. We had an incident happen during COVID in 2020, which was the one where 9 people are levitated up in the air, and the beings show up, and there's more beings than there are trees in the forest. And they're around these people, and they're levitated into the air, and they're talking, and sounds like they're underwater, which means they're in a Zendra or in a portal. And we've actually, one of the guys wasn't in the 9 people that were levitated in the air, but he was there at that event and claimed he had been inside the mountain, and they followed him home. This whole hitchhiker thing, and which I say to people, the hitchhiker happens all over the place. It happens with ghost hunting. It happens with UFOs. It happens with, in this case, with the Mission Rama. And Mission Rama has never had a gray, a reptilian, or a mantid. They have these people that look like they popped out of the Bible, because it's a very religious type thing, and they're oming and meditating and praying, and they're trying to raise their vibration. And then from time to time they'll open one of these. They call them Zendras, but they're like portals, and the being is there. And so the one guy followed him home, and then he set up this one in 2020, and he didn't go. And then one of the guys there was followed home, and this phenomena started happening around him at home, and he wasn't even involved in the sighting. And we've now just tracked this guy down, and hopefully I'm going to get an interview with him, because I actually got an interview with 3 of the 9 people that were levitated into the air by this phenomena happening. I talked to them, and they were like very humble Latino people, and they were saying, "Oh, we don't want this to be us be the middle of this thing. It was just an event that happened or whatever." And by the time we were finished the interview, they were all fighting with each other to talk. It was like they all wanted to tell this story. It was just the most, just unbelievable. And then there was a being that showed up that was caught on film in the afternoon on a 1 minute and 20-second film. This hooded. Looked like it's somebody in a hood, a white hooded thing standing on the edge of the forest. And as the camera pans back, going back across this event that they were doing, this figure has been moved maybe 25 or 30 feet. And there's a shadow, which shows there's a light coming from the ground. There's this massive shadow in behind this thing. Just bizarre. Looked like a portal in front of one of the trees. Just unbelievable, like stories you never ever dreamed were possible. And we've actually got Zendras on camera. There's videos of them. There's photographs of them. So this is a story that has not got any attention whatsoever. Most people have no clue who Mission Rama is and the stuff that they've been able to do. And I've just been fascinated with these. I've written 2 books on them. And so there's a lot of UFO stuff that, and when you get a Zendra where people will go through the Zendra, they'll step into the Zendra, people will be watching them, and they'll go through and they're on another planet. They just take one step through the Zendra and they're on another planet. And that's the kind of stuff where anybody who thinks the U.S. government has that kind of technology, the question then arises, why would you lose to a bunch of camel jockeys in Afghanistan if you've got that kind of technology? Although I do believe that they may have time travel portal technology. I've got a fair bit of evidence that indicates that if they have any technology, that's the technology they have. Some sort of time travel technology.
Do you think then that the technology that is being shown today, that people are claiming, like with the drones in New Jersey, or people claiming these orbs that are out there, do you believe that all of these are alien, or do you believe that it's already been copied and this is U.S. technology?
No, I think it's alien technology. I think it's just again, it's the Jesus circus. They back in 1956 in Ottawa, the alien that they're dealing with was claiming that there was 500 bells, like Dembski type saucers, would appear over Ottawa, Canada, and that never happened. So you always have these sort of things that they're going to bring these people, and that's what they're doing. So they'll do stuff like with the Eisenhower aircraft carrier. So what they do is they fly like these balls of light, and they come as close to the plane as possible. And it's almost like the guy's saying, "Okay, Zorbar, I bet you I can get closer to the plane than you can." And they're doing this kind of stuff just to show off. And then they show up with 100 drones, and everybody's saying, "Oh, it's like 100 drones." No, this is what the phenomena does. It does these weird sort of things. So when you take a look at the American thing, that's why I said you get this phenomena basically over American military. The whistleblowers are all American, and it's got a lot to do with the U.S. military. And so you take the New Jersey drones where these things were all over the place, and it's just like they're showing up where the original alien invasion thing showed up. And one of the things people didn't realize is that the same time that the drones showed up over New Jersey, they showed up over at Laken Heath in England. And what happened there at exactly the same time, Putin put soldiers into Belarus, and the Americans moved nuclear weapons to that Air Force base where the drones were being seen in England. And there's always, that's part of this Netflix series thing, is there's always a story behind. If you take a look at the major UFO incidents, you start looking behind, and there's always some nuclear connection to it. For example, when Travis Walton was abducted, every night that Travis Walton was abducted in November of 1975, the same year that I started, there was a UFO over a nuclear weapon storage area or a nuclear storage area in the United States every single night. And if you take a look at the 6-Day War, you see that just before the 6-Day War, was the famous Falcon Lake sighting. It happened about a week and a half before, and the shutdown of the Malmströms happened just before the 6-Day War. And then you take a look at the 6-Day War, and it's now been determined the 6-Day War had to do with new nuclear weapons, that the Russians were going to check out to take out the Dimona plant, where they were assembling the first 2 nuclear weapons, the Israelis. And that's what that was about. If you take a look at the Pascagoula, 1973 Pascagoula case, it happened where they service and build submarines, nuclear submarines at Pascagoula, Mississippi. And that was exactly when the Yom Kippur War took place. And they had nine planes loaded with nuclear weapons because they were losing the war and they were going to drop these nuclear weapons. And you see this over and over. My sightings, 1975, I went back to Bob Deemer and I said, Bob, he ran the airport there. I said, Bob, why were these in Carmen? Why were the UFOs? He said, you know why the UFOs are here. I said, no, Bob, I have no clue. He said, I told you in 75 why they're here. And I said, Bob, it's been 35, 40 years. I have no idea why the UFOs are here. He said, the missile silos. I told you that. I told you I talked to the pilot at the border who told me they were going to ram them over top of this missile base. And I knew as soon as he said, yeah, that was true. And they put the only anti-ballistic missile unit in North Dakota in 1975. Put 100 new nuclear missiles in to take down the Russians as they were in outer space if they launched missiles. And if they came through and got through, they had these little sprint missiles that would try to take them down. They put them in. That's when the sighting started. And they took the nuclear missiles out in November of 1975, and the UFO sightings went away. There's always this sort of backdoor connection. And I don't believe that we have that technology that's a lot of people believe we back engineered stuff. The only thing I think we may have back engineered is this idea of the time travel thing, the anti-gravity stuff that I still think it's all basically them showing off. They're just doing this weird stuff and getting people thinking, and you may not know what's going on. I may not know what's going on, but I guarantee you the people in the Black Ops know exactly what's going on. Same as cattle mutilations. Cattle mutilations happened for 30 years and they don't happen anymore, but they were happening. And when you start looking at the whole map, you take this Perkins guy, David Perkins, who had the biggest catalog of the cattle mutilations, and he said they all happened downwind and downstream from nuclear power activities. And you look at the map, and it's exactly right. There was all on the east side of the Rockies. There was nothing on the west side of the Rockies. It was all on the east sides where they detonated all the atomic bombs on Area 51 during the late 1940s, where they were testing above ground nuclear missiles. And then you have all these cancer downwind and downstream, and the same thing happened with the mutes. It says when Bob Bigelow was asked at Skinwalker Ranch, George Knapp asked him, so what was it all about? What was it all about, Skinwalker? What's this all about? And he said instantly, it's all about messaging. It's all about messaging and gaming. It's all about messaging. And that's what I believe. It's all about this is all messaging. When you see what's going on, they're just trying to put across messages, create awe and curiosity to get people to figure it out.
Do we want the answers? Do they want to give us the answers?
Well, I don't think they want the answers. I want the answers. That's why I'm writing the book that say true disclosure. And the true disclosure is you talk to people who interacted with the phenomena. And then you start getting this whole thing about understanding the idea that consciousness is primary, that oneness is the rule, that we're all part. The Ronald Reagan statement, how the world would unite if we were faced with a threat from an alien nation. We'd all come together as one and we'd realize we're all just God's children. That's the basic message. They want us to know that we're all part of one thing, but we see separation. So I say everything that is considered fear in the modern world is created by one thing and one thing only: the mistaken belief in separation. So when we believe they're separate from the United States, we're separate from these guys, we're separate from this religion, we're separate from this color of people, and we believe in this separation thing. We're the good guys, they're the bad guys, and that's the thing that's creating the war and the conflict. Once you realize if you were being invaded by a foreign race, we'd all realize we're just on planet Earth. And that was this experience that all astronauts talk about when you go around the Earth, this sort of a spiritual experience they get where they suddenly realize it's all one thing. Everybody's there and you don't realize there's all these wars, and they see that the planet is just one alive, conscious organism floating around in space. And that's what I think that they don't want you to know, is because that's why they have it in front of armed services and intelligence, because it's all about money. It's all about getting funding. It's all about trying to, if you're the scientists on the outside, like whatever, scientists that they want this released. Well, the scientists want it because they know that Tim Taylor had a download that he got, and that the company that download was a part of was sold for 89 or 88 million dollars in NASDAQ. There's a lot of money if you can get a patent. So a lot of people want the phenomena brought out into the public so the white world can look at it, because they want to get a patent. It's sort of like stealing the saucers. Everybody's fighting over these saucers. And that's one of the problems you have with disclosure, is if you get disclosure, Dave, and you have this eminent domain thing, what are you going to do with the saucers? Is Burchett, is he going to take? He's a horse farmer. Is he going to, take his farm and get a couple of horses and his wagon and go over to Lockheed Skunk Works and get a saucer and take it back to his barn and start working on it? The people who have the crafts are the people who are the experts. So we're going to get the crafts, and the government's going to give. They're going to give them to Elon Musk. People have no clue what they're going to do. Or in the United States of America, you have this very great division between races and political parties and all this kind of stuff. And I say to people, seriously, you want disclosure? You want the aliens to land on the White House lawn? Do you seriously, for 1 second, think that grays, reptilians, and mantids are going to be allowed to walk on the streets of America? Or they're going to be allowed to build a factory and go up against the F-150 truck and build a truck for $1,000 that doesn't have an engine and doesn't have to put gas in it? Come on, they'll wipe us off the planet. There's no way they're going to allow that kind of stuff to take place, to have aliens walk in the streets, or to allow them in the free enterprise market to come in, because Elon Musk pays $20 for his people on his assembly plant. The aliens pay zero. They don't have a union. They have nothing. They work for nothing. So they can produce stuff, and they have this super technology. We're going to allow them to do this. So a lot of the disclosure problems haven't been thought out by people. It's what Walker said. You're just curious. Admit it. You're just curious. You want to know what's going on. And that's not a sufficient reason. We have to get to the part about what are the experiencers being told. And then you see this idea that it may not be extraterrestrial. It may be a higher form of vibration. It may be spiritual, the whole thing. And that's something where, if you're in power, you don't want to go there. You just, unless you're absolutely certain, but you don't want to go there, because that you just kick it to the next guy and say, let the next guy deal with this problem. It's not something, it's much more complex. It's 1,000 times more complex than people think it is. And people just want disclosure. And then when you ask them what disclosure they want, there's 100 different answers. And people want disclosed what they believe is actually going on. And I keep insisting it is way more complex. And it's what Henry Kissinger called the hottest potato in Washington. Nobody wants to touch it.
But you look at how everything is becoming so controlled, Grant, whether it's from the scientific community, who, you have people who are considered rogue, like Jack Sarfati, who we had on the show a few weeks ago, where he's going off about what they're getting right, what they're getting wrong. Then you have people who are involved in the SCU or other government agencies, or even projects like Soul Foundation or the Galileo Project, where they're talking about making this public, but the more public they go, the more private they go at the same time.
Yeah. It's the thing is everybody's doing a funding, because if you're an academic, that's what you do. You have to get funding. You got to write papers. Otherwise you're gone. You have to publish. And so that's what people are doing. Like, I mean, what did Avi Loeb get? $10 million or something for funding this project, for looking for these things in the ocean or whatever. And that's what it's all about. It's about getting funding. And that's why I say it's called stealing the saucers, that a lot of the white world just wants it because they believe that they can make inventions from this kind of stuff. And of course, if you're in the black world and you're working on this stuff, are you going to give it up before you've invented a patent? You want to stick on, or you want to keep the control of the whole thing. So it's always this thing about the three rules. The number one rule is money, second rule is money, and third rule is money. And it's all about money and who's getting the funding. And we've known this in the UFO community forever, that this joke was, if you win $1 million, if you're a UFO researcher, you win $1 million, what do? You just keep spending your money and studying UFOs until the money's gone, because there's no money in UFOs. I mean, it's like, there's just nothing. And that's the whole point, is that that's why they changed the scenario. When Leslie Kean wrote the book about the generals in 2009, she said, the reason we should disclose is because it might be a threat to airline traffic. And everybody's like, come on, give your head a shake. And nobody believed that. But what they did now, and as we told the story, but Nicole Sackage and I were on this phone call with Elizondo and Mellon, and this whole thing that they want us to do, this fear thing. And it basically comes down to the fact that what you want to do is you want to create this fear and that there's an imminent invasion. Now they're even saying 2027 there's going to be an invasion. This huge craft is coming. That's what von Braun warned about years ago. It was going to be the alien invasion threat, but it's all about funding. It's about trying to get money. It's trying to control the issue because there's no money. And now they've actually gotten to a point where they are going to get money. They are going to get funding. The Elizondo's got a contract job, and all these guys are involved, and they're getting offers. Pandolfi's getting this, offer from Texas Space, and these guys, I didn't even heard of these guys. And there's all these new players in the game, and they all realize there's a pile of money if you can get even the smallest little invention spinning off this technology. But the thing is, the technology may not be what you think it is. It may be this higher vibration, like a radio frequency, that you just change the radio frequency and you get these different types of entities, and they can come into our world and produce physical stuff, and they just go back into their world, which is not physical. And that's what people are missing. The point is that I tell people, man, this thing is, in the end, it's going to be ontological. It's going to be a spiritual thing. These are higher forms of beings that are coming down that know everything. For example, 40% of people that are on the ship say at one point during their experience, they knew the answer to everything in the universe, which means the aliens, whoever they are, gave them access to everything in the universe. They know the access to everything in the universe. They know everything in the universe. They don't need to investigate us. They're not here to study the plants. They're here for this warning thing about the fact that the kids have got the matches. And so it's a very complex thing, and some difference between allowing the government to get this technology and build weapons from it, or us to get the technology and get the message out as to what these people are being told. And there's surveys of 3,200 experiencers. There's all sorts of evidence that's totally being ignored. All the Congress is ignoring the experiencers. All the people who do major documentaries are ignoring the experiencers. And we aren't going anywhere. We can try to measure and count lights in the sky again. Even Lakatsky said that. It's going to go nowhere. And this is the guy that ran the program. He said there was 260,000 sightings in the database. They were all different. He said that this is just a waste of time. And that's where you got to get into. Even the hardware may give you some answers, but the people who have engaged with the phenomena have to you've got to start talking to these people.
We have 2 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. Grant Cameron is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Yeah, I mean, just some of the names you dropped there, whether it was James Lakatsky or others, other scientists that we just asked about. The way I look at it, Grant, is I don't know, as somebody who's been in this field a decade now, I don't know if I feel comfortable trusting what is being said out there anymore. I trust experiencers more than I do what we're getting out of these government officials.
Well, one of the things you got to realize is that the government officials are also experiencers. James Lakatsky had the experience. He went to Skinwalker Ranch, and he had this thing that was on the cover of this album from the music from the Devil movie, whatever that was. And so he's an experiencer. Eric Davis is an experiencer. Gary Nolan's an experiencer. Jim Semivan was whining about, how unfortunate it was, how these beings were in his room and they didn't ask for permission and stuff. And I said it was the most important sighting that ever happened in the UFO community ever. Because if he had not had those beings in his room, Jim Semivan was the guy who actually moved the article into the New York Times. He's the guy who was called Mr. Big in 2016. He was the main guy. If he had not had those beings in his room, do you think he would have gone and put his career on the line to go and get in disclosure? All the disclosure goes back to Jim Semivan. He's the guy behind the whole thing. And it was because the beings went and rattled his cage in the bedroom. And that's the thing. All these guys are experiencers. So I watched the highest level source. That's how I work. I'm trying to find out what's going on, the highest level sources. And I would say I would stake my life that Lakatsky and Semivan talked about the 6-hour briefing he got. I think he's straight. I think James Lakatsky's straight. But I say, as I said about Lou Elizondo, I believe that they're getting stuff. Like he said, they asked him what was inside the craft. He said, I have to get it cleared through Dopser. Maybe in the next book we'll do that. So to me, the government is allowing this stuff to come out. And Lakatsky's one of the guys that's telling the story for them. And so is Semivan. And I believe these other guys, especially when I write a book on psionics and flying the craft and stuff. And suddenly this guy comes out, no, we're talking about psionics. Like they discovered it. Like, come on, man. They're just repeating it because now it's public.
I agree with you. We could get into that when we return from the break here at the top of the hour We have Grant Cameron, legendary UFO researcher, hero, mentor of mine, on the show for another hour here on Spaced Out Radio. UFO conversation. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Grant, we are clear. I'm going to put you back in the green room, and I'll be back in a couple minutes, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Be right back, everybody. All right, I am back. All right. Let's bring Grant back in.
Okay.
So Grant is going to come up and visit me this spring. He's going to come for a drive. Come on up here and hang out. I'm going to take him out to Flight 21. Oh, yes. Grant, you are going to have a wonderful night there until we get escorted out.
So a question would be, or with your sighting, is this going to be random, or is this going to be the phenomena is just showing off?
I don't know. I don't know.
Like your sighting, you've had a couple of close encounters with beings, very direct.
Yes.
And the way I look at it, to me, it's like the more I look at it, the more it doesn't seem to be random at all. It's just they have lights on so you can see them. They just show up and then they disappear and they get you, and then they come visit you, and you have these encounters, and everybody's talking to somebody different. Every alien has a different name. I always say to people now, I skip the thing. I say, "You're on board a ship?" Yeah. So what's the name of the guy you were dealing with? Oh, that's Da, or that's LB. That's like, it's always a person that they're dealing with, eh?
All right, we got just under 30 seconds. Big thank you to Joe, Bob G ×3, T-Bone ×2, and Richard for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love and support here, guys. I'll try and get to some of your questions later on in the half hour here. I want to talk with Grant here about another subject, and we're going to get going here in 5 seconds. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My stage spot here. A lot of UFO topics. Grant Cameron, legendary researcher, is our guest here on the show. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network again. All right. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Nick Thurman. Yeah, I knew I butchered that one, but we're going to go with it, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Time once again to say hello to Grant Cameron, legendary UFO researcher, author. You can find all of his books over on Amazon. And Grant, I want to ask you about something that's important not only to me, but a lot of the UFO YouTube channels, podcast channels, even radio shows, where we see not only a threat narrative from the governmental side, but we seem to see a control of who's allowed to speak to these whistleblowers now. Jake Barber hasn't done a tour. David Grush never did a tour. You know, many of these whistleblowers coming out seem to be having handlers. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, it happens. I agree with you, but it happens as well. I was one of the first people to interview Kai Dickens, who's the famous telepathy tapes, the one that outdid Joe Rogan. And I did the first interview with her, and then of course I said to all my friends, "Oh, you gotta listen to this. This is amazing." And I actually set up 2 conferences for her to speak at. And then suddenly she went viral, and she canceled all those presentations she was at. And one she's going to do on Zoom, but she basically canceled them. And that's what the thing is, that when people get big, they can sort of pick and choose. So either you haven't got a big enough audience, or you said something that sort of upset them. But there is handlers, but that's the name of the game. Once people are there, they'll check your YouTube out, and your postings and stuff like that, to decide whether they're going to talk to you. But there is control. But I mean, what are you going to do? You do the best you can and get the guests, and because you've talked to Elizondo. I've had I had that engagement with Nick Kolosakis, but I've never interviewed him. I never interviewed George Knapp, and you've had some big guests, but there is, I agree with you. There is this control narrative, but I think it happens in all types of fields where people suddenly get famous and they cut down on who they're talking to, or somebody behind them doesn't want them. There's a lot of politics, in ufology.
Well, to me, it's more of a great divide between ufology and this U-apology that is out there. The UAP crowd seems to be quite okay with it. They seem to follow every narrative to a T on what these UFO deities or UAP deities are talking about. Yet the old school ufologists like yourself or Victor Vigiani or you name whoever it is, Lorian Fenton or Melinda Leslie, they just want to keep bringing out story after story. They want to put all the puzzle pieces together. And this is where I think the control happens, because now it seems to be that in order to get these guys on the air, you have to have a number of followers on your YouTube channel, usually around 800,000 to 1 million subscribers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the deal, is the ego starts to come in there about who they think they are and stuff like that. I don't know what to do about it. I mean, it's the game we chose to play, and you even get the crossover with the one that really upset me was the Soul Conference, where they decided that they weren't going to put the woo into it. The Soul Conference, the whole consciousness weird stuff. Now they're going to have to, because suddenly psionics is big. It's like we changed the word from CE5 or, contact modality to psionics. And suddenly now it's like acceptable to talk about, like it's scientific and stuff like that. But with this, the Soul Conference, they had decided that no, first we're going to teach people that there's the nuts and bolts is real. Then we'll go to the consciousness. They didn't deny that consciousness was a key aspect of this whole thing. But first we're going to do the nuts and bolts. But to me, it was like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again since 1947, believing that you're going to come to a different conclusion. We can keep measuring and getting more photographs and more cases and stuff like that. And it's not going to get you anywhere. It's just repeating the same thing you've done before. And the answer is going to come with the consciousness. So that's been cut off as well. That soul won't deal with that. Same as experiencers. If you get major documentaries in the UFO community, they will not deal with experiencers. Congress will not deal with experiencers, because there's still seen to be like the woo type people, and you have these divides. And if you're in that camp, and even the thing where Whitley Strieber said he couldn't get an interview with Mellon or Elizondo because they didn't want to be associated with him, and he's like one of the key figures in ufology.
Do you see it all part of controlling a government narrative then, compared to the real story of what's out there? Because other governments, Canada included, have come out saying there is no threat. There is no threat narrative going on. But we know that threats create budget in the United States.
Well, the threat thing, I don't think the threat thing was really there until Elizondo and Mellon, because that's what we had. That whole thing was when we had that meeting with them when they were dealing with the Canadians. And as we've told the story before, that we were going to put a panel, and there's 10 MPs, that Larry McGuire got 10 MPs that were willing to come forward, but they were newbies. They didn't know anything about anything. So I said, well, we'll have a open thing, 4 people, experts, and these guys can ask their questions, and anybody can broadcast it on their YouTube channel and whatever. And when we wouldn't play the game of Larry McGuire's assistant kept saying, well, no, we're not going to do this thing. We're going to do, our budgets don't work the same as yours, the committees and stuff. And we're going to do a scientific investigation. That's what the Prime Minister asked for. And that's what we're going to do. And that's when Mellon said, that's the poison pill, I'm gone. And it's like, you're not going to do what we tell you to do. We're not going to help you. And they just took off, and they never talked to us again. And that's that. So the threat narrative, I think, is this idea that they wanted the budget because the whole thing with Leslie Kane about the airline traffic, or the fact that people want to know, and people are curious. It's the whole deal. People want to know. And Congress says, well, who cares? You want to know. We're going to spend money. Like, don't let the door hit you on the way out. They couldn't care less. But if you can scare the living daylights out of them, well, then you can get budget. That's, to me, that's presented by these guys that are that are trying to do this fear narrative because it's working. That they've got committees now, they're inside committees, and they're getting budgets and stuff like that, and they can get contract jobs. People are trying to hire them. That's the way the game is played, and I just maintain that they're not going to figure it out by the nuts and bolts thing. That's not the way it's going to work. That this is a much more ontological problem than we would say it was even 75. I thought it was clearly extraterrestrial. I would say not in a million years would I believe it's extraterrestrial. It's maybe some component of something extraterrestrial, but it's definitely some sort of higher intelligence that's controlling this narrative and is doing the cover up and is gradually leading us through some little maze with little breadcrumbs.
You mentioned Larry Maguire, the Canadian MP, who really is responsible for bringing back the topic of ufology north of the border. Yeah. He says he is not running in the next federal election next month.
Oh, shoot.
And he is retiring, wants to spend more time with his family and his grandchildren. My question to you is this then. Do you think we see him start to do the UFO tour? Do we see him all of a sudden join some of these groups as a high-profile member of a Western government?
Yeah, I hope so. I wasn't aware of that. That's a bad sign, because he was the only guy who was briefing everybody else. Like these other guys that had sort of an interest, and he was sort of briefing them. That's pretty sad that Larry's not going to run again. I hope he does. Whether people are going to listen to a Canadian, though, is another thing. I mean, whether the Americans are going to. He did get some high profile attention, the same as Hellier got some high profile attention, but we'll have to see. I mean, that's where I'm sort of optimistic. I'm pessimistic, but then I'm optimistic because this message I got. We ought to land the plane, and this idea that they're gradually upping the ante, especially with the drones, and that's what's happened that people don't realize. Is that over the history of UFOs, it's not been the same thing. I've been in it 50 years, my whole life. And so I know the fact that in 1896, there was wooden ships with propellers that said they were coming from Mars, and they weren't coming from Mars. And then there was Foo Fighters, and then there was Green Fireballs, and there was Adamski crafts, followed by the Greys coming on, and the crafts with windows. Now there's no crafts with windows. And then there's the triangles. They started in 76. I saw the first one in 76. And then the reptilians came along in 1980. And then the cattle mutilations came, then the crop circles came, the ground traces left, the cattle mutilations ended, and now we got the orbs. And it's like this thing that they just changed from one thing to another thing to another thing, and we're just being led along. And we sort of assume that everything has always been the same. It has not been the same. This phenomena is changing, it's morphing, and it's leading us down a path. And we're getting this really interesting thing where they're going after the U.S. military in terms of these high numbers of drones over top of these nuclear aircraft carriers and stuff like that, where it's getting very high attention. The only thing I sort of doubt is that we hear this thing about 2026, 2027, and that I can't see. Maybe it's going to happen, but I cannot see in a million years that the aliens are going to land in the middle of this mess. I memean, I remember Bashar saying, "You think we're going to land in a place where everybody's crazy and everybody has a gun?" It's like I just can't believe in 2027 that any sort of intelligence is going to land. It's like a total joke. No way. It's gone crazier by the minute. Forget about by the year.
Oh my. Yeah, it just seems to be out of control right now. Ufology seems to be just a deck of cards thrown on the ground, and now you have to pick up all 52.
Yeah, but that's part of what I look at is I don't know if I talk about your show much, but one of the big things I watch, like I started with the sighting, then I went after the Canadian government because I figured like I didn't know what was going on, but somebody's got to know what the hell's going on here. So I went after the Canadian government, and then that led to Dr. Eric Walker, and that led to the president of the United States, which led to the CIA and Ron Pandolfi and all these high-level guys, and then it led to experiencers. And then the other one that came up was channelers. That I got very much into channelers. I realized there was an actual test that you could test channelers, and most of the channelers now are saying that that everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be. Everything's just, we're on a shift. We're about to make a shift here. And we got to go through this craziness, and this is the way it's going to be. And then you take a look at compare that with the people who have the near-death experiences, or the one example I can use is Nick Cook. So Nick Cook's wife, Nick Cook wrote the book, Hunt for Zero Point, very famous aeronautical guy. And his wife is with her mother, and the mother's dying, and she's holding her mother's hand, and her mother dies. And the wife gets up and says, "Oh, everything's perfect." He goes walking out of the room. And Nick Cook goes running after and says, "What do you mean everything's perfect? Your mother just died. How can everything be perfect?" She said, "Weren't you there?" He said, "No, wasn't I where?" She says, "I was in this field, and I knew the answer to everything in the universe," which is 40% of UFO experiencers say, which 31% of near-death experiencers say they knew the answer to everything in the universe. So I knew the answer to everything in the universe, and and everything was perfect. And so everything's perfect. And I did an interview with a guy who in float tanks. So he did sensory deprivation. Him and the other one I did was a woman who'd been thrown off a motorcycle face first into concrete in LA. And she had a near-death experience. Another one was a woman who did hypnosis, who was having a bad time. And they all had the experience of having this thing that they could not believe in their ears, what they were told. Everything's perfect. And so that's the sort of the thing is, it's this idea that if reincarnation is a fact, then we're here playing puppets. And a lot of this stuff is being staged, that we are part of a play that we're playing, and everything's going to be perfect. We're going to come off stage. We're all going to say, "That was great. We had our little meeting before we went on, Dave, and you said you're going to run this big radio show, and I'm going to come on your show, and you're going to have this experience and that experience." And I think it's all going to work out in the end, that we got to remember who we actually are. We're taking this seriously, like we actually, the 80 years that we're here, or the 70 years is actually for real, and it means something. It doesn't mean anything. It's going to be a forgotten dream. When we die, it's going to be, we're going to forget. We're going to go into the next lifetime, and we're not even going to remember who we were or what happened, and we're not going to care. And that's the whole thing. We're taking life too seriously in terms of what's happening here and now, because we're in the Western world, and in the Western world, you want everything yesterday. It's like we want more, with bigger cars, more houses, more cars, and the ufology thing is, as Walker pointed out to us, it's just curiosity. We've got the houses and the cars, and our kids have been through university, and what the hell are we going to do now? There's nothing on the TV. There's no Netflix. So let's do some UFO stuff. Maybe there's some good stories. And we're doing this thing, and we're missing the big aspect of the story is we're forgetting who we are. That we're etheric beings playing a role, and these aliens are etheric beings playing roles. We're all playing on stage. We read our damn lines, and we leave stage left, and that's the whole thing that we forget. We sort of think that we've got to have disclosure right now, and this is the end of the world if we don't have disclosure. And no, it's like even if you take the experiencers, and I don't know what it is, 25% that they claim that the being that they were dealing with on board the ship was with them in their last lifetime. I mean, when you take a look at that, you go, something's going on. This is not what we think it is. This is a little more complex. And that's what we got to remember. We got to remember who we actually are. We're playing a puppet on a stage, and we're just reading our lines, and this is all happening around us. And we came in at this time, and we should take it with respect that we got to be here, because whatever mess we find ourselves in whether it's ufology or politics or whatever it is, we chose to be here at this time in this place in the middle of this mess. And perhaps we chose to be here because we volunteered to come here to try to help straighten out the mess.
Let's get to some audience questions here. We got about 5.5 minutes before we have to go to break.
Okay.
Let's start off with Shelly here. What is our company, aka the aliens, looking for?
They're not looking for anything. I told you, they 40% of all experiencers say at one point during their experience with these beings, they knew the answer to everything in the universe, which means the beings have the answer to everything in the universe. They don't need anything. If you go on their ship, there is no such thing as leather furniture, chandeliers. They don't wear clothes. There's no designer clothes. They don't have jewelry. They don't have anything. They're absolutely living just basic life, just doing this thing. That's we got to realize. So what do they need from us? They can make whatever they want. They can go and gather whatever they want, get what they want. And if you go on their ship, they have nothing. They don't have toilets. They don't have anything. Just these workstation, and they're all working like little bees in a beehive. And so they don't need anything. They have the answer to everything. That's why I say it has to be this messaging thing, that they're here because they're trying to elevate consciousness, the same as you and I came into the world to elevate consciousness, to do what we're doing, unless you believe you came in here randomly. And I really doubt that we came in here just on a crapshoot every reincarnation thing. We're here to do something. You can talk to experiencers. Mike Clellan used to play this game. I started doing it too. So you ask somebody who's an experiencer to say, hey, you had this experience? So what's your sense of mission on a scale from 1 to 10? What's your sense of mission? And Mike Clown says most of them answered 11. Like they don't know what the mission is, but they do know what the mission is, and they'll tell you what the mission is. But everybody's in this game thinks that they have some sort of mission, that they're supposed to be doing something. And it's true. You come into the world to do something, whether it's to learn envy or fear or greed or lessons about whatever. And we came in something to deal with this UFO thing, that this is an important thing. And it's to raise consciousness, to realize that we're all one thing, where it's like cells in a human body. And when we decide not to be the cell in the human body, that we're going to be different and we're going to separate, that's when you get a cancer cell. It starts to duplicate. It's not doing what it's doing. Everything works together in the universe. Everything works together in the body. You have 1 million cells dying every minute, and they're replaced by 1 million cells. The body knows exactly what it's doing. The cells know what they're doing, and they're all working together as one. That is the message that they're trying to get. They don't need anything from us. They have all the answers to everything, and they're here for some. And people say, well, why would they come and help us? Because when you get out of this idea about ego and this idea of rape, pillage, kill, and steal, whoever's got the most toys when they die wins. When you get above that, you go into altruism. That basically it's all that we're part of the creator, and we're all out there trying to make the world a better place and a more elaborate place. And so you add this and I add this, and the world gets more elaborate and more grand. And it's like the God gets bigger and bigger and bigger and more grand. And that's what it's about. It's about making a better world rather than trying to steal your kid's allowance out of his piggy bank.
All right, let's sneak in one more question. 2.5 minutes, Grant. Let's go over to, let's see here. T-Bone, who is asking, do you agree with Dolly Saffron, who says there is no bad aliens?
Yes. This is a long argument. I mean, this whole thing, I mean, it's all relative. So, I mean, it's like you and I are Canadians. And I mean, you say, okay, a year ago, would we have said Americans are bad guys? No. You go now and take a poll, like 85%. It's like, no, we don't want anything to do with these guys. It's all relative. It just changes. And we do that with war. So we used to have the Japanese were the evil guys. We had to drop atomic bombs and melt them into the sidewalk. And then suddenly they started building cars and they were okay. And now they're our friends. And same with North Vietnam. They're making Nike runners very cheap. So now they're our friends. And it's all relative. It's all, this idea. It's this idea of separation. When you can separate. So one of the channelers that I watch very closely is Paul Selleck, and the way he points it out is this: whatever you separate from the divine and put into darkness through co-resonance, because you're going to resonate with whatever you're dealing with. Through co-resonance, you will be dragged into the darkness with it. What you damn damns you back. What you bless blesses you in return. To say I am divine and you are not is nothing more than the shadow pretending to be the light.
Can we fit in one more here? Let's see here. We got 1 minute. Grant, do you know why Jim Semivan seems so negative and terrified of ETs and the phenomena?
Well, he had this experience, and he believed that they interfered with his human rights and his didn't ask permission and stuff. And I immediately think, like, what? The CIA ask for permission when they go in another country and knock people off and steal their? He was actually bragging one time. Oh, so we were stealing stuff from all these countries. It was fun, It's like, I mean, he's just mad because of what happened to him. And I say it's the biggest story ever, because nothing would happen. None of this disclosure would have happened if Jim Semivan had not been abducted or had the beings in his room or whatever. And so he's just upset about what he experienced. He thinks that they're negative because they didn't ask permission to come into his room. And then he knows the thing. He even brought it up that he may have agreed to this. There may be a soul contract that he actually agreed to do this. But he said, I don't want to go down that road. But he knows the thing that because he actually said there was behind him. He said there was this thing behind him that had this guardian type thing going on about it. And I'm going, that's a soul. That's your soul, your spirit guide behind you. It's on the left-hand side. And he had this experience. And a lot of people on board the ship will talk about this. People behind him, they're telling him what to do.
Grant Cameron, we got him till the top of the hour. listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. All right, we're clear, Grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to get up here. I'm so excited about that now.
Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah. It's a new world for me out here. It's like, we'll see where it, especially after 70 years. It's 70 years in Winnipeg, and then suddenly it's like sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm going, "Where am I? And what am I doing here?" It's so weird.
Your boy and your grandchild. I mean, that doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, I got the kid every day. I get to see him, and I actually took him to the rink at Port Coquitlam Rink, and
nice.
he was going down the ramp for the first time. There's a sloped ramp going down there, and he bumped his head. So I'm taking shit for this about this poor kid trying to kill this kid. But he's sitting on the ice. He was so cool. He's just feeling the ice, and he's like, say, "Hey, man, we're gonna have skates on before November." Right? It's like it's the big thing. And it's like
I've already got my boy in training, and my grandson was just up here, and it's weird because every time he walks into the one room, he grabs the hockey stick.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
right on.
Steers. So
yeah, it's good here. They got 3 rinks in Port Coquitlam. The 2 of them are using for lacrosse, but the one rink. And I said, "Well, how much it cost?" He says, "Well, at lunchtime from 12 till 1, it's $2." I went, "Holy cow! I'll be there every day with the kid." Like, come on, let's go. We're going skating.
Oh yeah.
That's unreal. I mean, we paid more than that in 1990s when my kid was there. It was like $200 an hour for ice, and we were all cash. And then we said, at least our kids aren't at 7-Eleven. And then my mother phones me the one day, "You know where Chad is?" I said, "No, where is he?" "He's at 7-Eleven on a skateboard." I said, "He is?" And that's what
my son should fit into his skates here probably within the next 6 months, 7 months.
How is he 2 now?
He's he's about 25 months, 26 months, 27 months.
That's a good age where they're exploring. And I try to take them around and show them all, because they want them playing with toys, but I try to take them and show them new things and anything that's he hasn't seen before to motivate him. But he's got an edge to him. I don't know, man. He's going to be in the penalty box all the time. He's got quite an attitude.
I'm trying to get that mean streak out of my kid, man.
I don't know. It's like, I can't believe it. It's like, wow.
Oh, yeah.
They all got different personalities. It's so weird. My kid was always so laid back, and this kid, he's like, once he doesn't get it, boy, he just starts screaming. It's like, yeah. So how many rinks you got up there? Do you have to travel far to go?
Everybody up here has to travel. So my son's closest rival would be an hour's drive away.
Okay. But do you have a rink near you?
Yeah, there's a rink in town. Real nice rink.
Okay. Actually. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. And that's always good too, when you get it's like a break where you can go there and just sit there and watch the future. It's like, and I look, because I may not be around when my kid, when he gets 18 draft, I'll be pretty old by then. And like my kid, I said, I want a cherry tree. So he said, "I'm going to buy a cherry tree." And then his wife was saying, "Well, we can get some small one." I said, No, I ain't going to live long enough to. I want an 8 years old, the cherry tree, when we put it in, because I'll be dead before the tree gets cherries on it. But it's kind of weird where I may not see him to 18, but even now, he watches the hockey, and he likes for some reason, he likes the national anthems. When you phone me, we're the national anthems, and he tries to sing the national anthems.
Good. Man, I have a Chinese cherry tree in my backyard. They're horrible cherries, but the deer just love them.
Oh, wow.
Just love them.
Wow. So, we haven't got deers. We got the I had the 2 incidences with the a coyote tracking me. People stop on the street. There's a coyote tracking you. I said, what? So I got and then the 3rd time I ran up, but there was a dog chasing him, so I didn't have much trouble. 2 times it was like, holy cow. I waved my hands. So I tell people, you wave your hands and whistle and yell and scream. It doesn't work. I tried it. He just yawned. He kept coming. It's like, holy shit.
We got about 25 seconds. Big thank you to Gizmo, Bob G ×4, T-Bone ×2, Richard, the other Bob, and Cosmic Joe for the great super chats tonight. Thank you for the love and support. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Why? We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you check it on out and go get yours today. Let's get ready to do this thing. Here we go with Grant. We're already in the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. I'm Scott, the legendary UFO researcher Grant Kent, will join us here in a second. I want to remind all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here comes Grant Cameron, firing away on all cylinders right now. You can find any of his books, which are probably some of the best you could add to your UFO collection, on Amazon. Grant, thank you very much for being here. Really do appreciate it.
Yeah. It's an honor.
Questions?
Sure.
All right, let's go to Uriel. Do you have any more stories about the jump rooms, Grant?
Well, I guess I told the one with Tim Taylor. That was the key one that told me about the Hughes Aircraft Building in outside of LAX, where I didn't know what he was talking about. And then it was actually a couple of years later when I sort of woke up and I wondered, what was Tim Taylor doing at this building? I mean, because I always thought that story was nonsense about Barack Obama going to Mars with Andy Basiago. And then I'm thinking, well, he went there. Must be some truth to this thing. Why would he go there? I mean, take these photographs of the thing and then show them to me. But the Zendras are the key one. That's, as I said, the biggest story, where 14, 15, they opened one. And I talked to the people that were inside that Zendra. And one of the things that popped out when it comes to what are we dealing with here is the first time in 2014, there was they allowed 7 people in the Zendra. So they went in and it's like a sort of like a fog type thing. And they go inside and the being is standing there. He's 10 feet tall. His name is Antarel. He's got these 2 other beings about 8 feet tall beside him. Then there's these little tiny beings hiding behind trees that look like they had iPads, and they figured they were keeping the Zendra open. And the people go in there and they were describing, each of them had a separate experience with this being. He was talking to 8 people at the same time, but it was different conversations. And then 2015, there was a Navy guy that had gone. He was a translator for Paula Harris, who was in there, and he was supposed to be in there. So they had 8 people in there that year, and he went in there. And I still remember this experience where I wanted to talk to him, and he said, "We can't release who I am because I lose my job as an architect in LA and stuff and all this." I said, "Yeah, fine." So he gave me this 2-hour interview, and I'm talking to him. I said, "So you were in the Zendra in 2015?" He said, "Yeah, I was in there." And I said, "So he was a hologram in just 2014. He was solid. 2015, he's a hologram." And this is the whole thing. What are we really dealing with? If this is a hologram, he's in 1 year he's a solid being. Next year he's a hologram. All these beings where you could see the trees through them. And he said, "What do you mean it's a hologram?" And I said, "Yeah, it was a hologram." Everybody said, I talked to all the people that were in the Zendra. It was a hologram. He said, "Look, Grant, I was close enough to him. I could see the lines in his face. He was not a hologram. He was solid. He was physical." And I go, "Okay." And he was going on this, it's an extraterrestrial. And that's this other aspect of the fact that the phenomena can change. They can morph. They can appear as whatever they want. Their crafts appear as whatever they want. And that's where it starts to get this complex complexity. And then I actually have an interview on my White House UFO YouTube channel. I'd always followed around Ron Pandolfi. And the reason I followed him is it's kind of a difficult character to try to figure out. But I knew that there was some truth to this idea that they had portals, that they had some sort of portal, and their stories kept getting told and stuff. And at one point, he's on a video that he doesn't realize I'm going to get a hold of. And on this video, he says, people have always wondered what it's like to go into the next world. He said, there's been a breakthrough. The next time John, and he refers to this guy that went to university in California with him, is sitting beside him. Next time John goes to the desert, a number of us here are going to go in the next world and come back again, which confirms that there is some truth to this portal thing. So I'm talking to Doug Alt, who's an artist, and he's very good friends with the Pandolfis, especially with the wife, because he's an artist and he teaches her art, and he's a godfather to the kid and all this sort of stuff. So anyway, we're talking about this, and I'm talking to Doug, and I says to him, I get tired of this Pandolfi thing. It's just, I can't figure it out. It's just stupid. And he puts all his garbage out and stuff like that. And I said, I'm just interested in the portal story. So do you think I should hang around? There's this pause, and he goes, yeah, I should probably hang around. I said, okay, I'll hang around. So I kept following these stupid stories for another couple of years. And then we're always talking hockey. He's a big Montreal Canadiens fan. So we're talking hockey. We're not even talking stuff. And he says, remember, Grant, that question you asked me 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever? I said, yeah, I remember the question. He said, it's real. I said, it's real? It's real. And then we actually talk on this interview. You can go watch this interview, the last one I did with Doug Alt. We actually talk about this, where he confirms that Ron's wife had told him that the portal thing is real, and that when you're ready, I will explain to you how it works, but it's not what you think. And so I'm still waiting on that, but that's why I think there's some truth to the portal thing. The anti-gravity stuff, it never goes anywhere. It's always comes up against a brick wall. There's nothing to it. Every time I do the portal thing, there always seems to be something at the end where you go, I wonder if this is true. And so we'll go with that, and we'll see where it goes. But if you watch this last Doug Alt interview, we talk quite a bit about this portal thing, and it's something I believe there's something to this story about portals and actuators and teaching people how to open these things, and this may be a technology the U.S. military actually has.
I thought you and Ron Pandolfi were in a love-hate relationship.
We are. Yeah. Well, what happened was I always followed him. I never talked to him. I would always talk to people around him, like Doug Alt, this guy that was a guy out of Vancouver here who was doing film for them. He lost his job here in Vancouver, and you know what it's like in Vancouver. I mean, to live in Vancouver, you need some money, and he didn't have much money. He was living on credit cards and stuff like that. And so Ron offered him a position. They were going to go to Costa Rica. I think they're there now, or I guess they just got back from Costa Rica, and they claimed that they had broken the universal interpreter, and they could interpret what birds were saying and stuff like that to figure out when the poachers were coming. And he was going to do this movie for them, a documentary for them. And so this poor guy out of Vancouver worked for them for 3 months. And then at the very end, just as they were going to go to the production end of this thing, they basically canned him. And at that point, I figured, okay, I've had enough of Pandolfi, because he would post I'm the only person he posts against on Facebook. So I'll post on Facebook, and he got to the point where he was posting every single time I posted. And we would have these sort of fights back and forth. He would call me a loon. Then he started on a crook, because I got this video of him talking about the portal. So he always call me a crook. And then I would call him a hypocrite, because he's got this foundation. His wife's got this foundation to save rare wild game animals around the world. And I said, you're working for Donald Trump, and his kid is the biggest poacher in the world, and you damn well sit there and say nothing. And he said, well, I've known Trump for 10 years and I can't say anything bad about him. He said, maybe in a month I'll be free. He's supposed to be retiring. But it's sort of like, it just got to the point where I was like, okay, he actually said to me at one point, he says, okay, give me questions. If you're really concerned, give me questions and we'll have a debate. I said, I don't want a debate. I'm not going to give you any questions. And as long as you're still working for the government, I don't believe a damn thing you're saying. But there was at one point where it sounded like he was going to do an interview after he retired, and he would take on all questions. Now he's always been the skeptic type guy, but he's playing, as Dan Smith says, he's playing both sides against the middle. So he puts stuff out, and then it's plausible deniability. Oh, you're just repeating what Dan Smith. Dan Smith is crazy. You're all this kind of stuff. So it was this kind of thing. And then I just sort of, when he canned this film producer guy, I was so upset. I said, okay, that's the end of your little 5 minutes of fame, and I blocked him on Facebook. So now he can't really say anything, but he was posting every time I posted something, he would post it against me. And this was the guy that supposedly is the guy that briefs Trump, but he couldn't have told Trump very much because not really much has happened or any other. He's supposed to have been briefing the president since Ronald Reagan on the UFO subject, but we're still in the disclosure, the cover-up stage. So I'm not sure that he really got us anywhere. He's always claimed that his was he was going to do disclosure, but I just got tired of him. And then I said, okay, enough of this nonsense. I'm just wasting my time with this guy.
Is it true that his wife is a hybrid?
The story is that she's the one that we missed it. It was actually, we had it on camera, but it was one of the films I didn't grab, where the daughter says, I'm only a half alien. My mother's a full alien. And she's supposed to have come through like a portal in a basket like Moses, and she was picked up by this Pakistani, like Kashmir is the big thing. So it's the Kashmir Foundation. She's sort of from Kashmir. And the story is, yes, that she's from the other side, and that they went to supposedly into the Arctic a couple months back, and they were going to meet with the beings. And his wife, Ron, have actually got different postings that he's made where somebody's talking about time travel, and he says, well, my wife's got sort of one of those time machines. And so he actually admits it to Ron. Ron confirmed to me Doug Ault had confirmed to me that at one point Ron said to him, she's not from around here. So there's truth to that story. And how do you prove it? But there's a lot of stuff. This is not a one person rumor. This is a lot of stories about who she actually is, and the fact that she teaches governments she's supposed to be friends with Trump, and she teaches governments how to open portals and stuff like that. This stuff just goes on all the time. And yet she said at one point about coming public, she said, why should I have a nice life? Why should it be up to me? But I'm waiting for Doug to come public with, because they promised to take him through the portal. And so maybe we'll get something when Doug goes through the portal.
All right, let's go to another audience question here. Let's see, T-Bone here. Grant, what's your take on the telepathy tapes?
Best thing has happened in 50 years of my work. It's the most dramatic piece of evidence I've ever seen in my life. This basically shows my theory. And I asked, when I talked to Diana Hennessy Powell, who actually discovered these kids many years ago, I asked her, is there a field? And she said, yes, there is a field. And the whole concept is that everything's in a field. And it's all about contact modalities. It's about you using hypnosis, meditation, psychedelics, drumming, constant, whatever trauma event, something to shut down the left brain. You can get into the field, get the material back. So the telepathy tapes deals with these kids all across the United States who are about to go on a major documentary. This podcast has outdone Rogan. It's a major story, and it's these nonverbal autistic kids, which means because they're nonverbal, it means the left side of the brain is shut down. And we know with contact modalities that if you could shut the left brain down, the right brain can interact with get stuff out of the universe. It can get mathematics and answer questions and channel and all this kind of stuff. There's a field, the Akashic field, that has all the material, and you load your stuff into the field, but certain people can download stuff out of that field. That was the theory. So these kids are nonverbal autistics, and they are 100%. So when you take a look at the remote viewing, the best remote viewing that there is, like you have these various categories. The highest level of remote viewing, which is like super target, right on the target, is 5 to 10% of people can do it. And these kids are 100% accurate. They do not make mistakes. They can do numbers. They can do words. They can do non-words that use make-up words. And these kids, a lot of them can speak foreign languages. They talk about being on a hill where they're talking to other nonverbal autistic kids. And they've confirmed a lot of this stuff, that these kids are actually communicating with each other across the United States. And so you get this kind of stuff where these kids are 100% telepathic, which indicates that they're going to be put into Faraday cages, There's 6 universities they named to me. I'm not sure which university they went to, but they're going to put these kids in Faraday cages, and they're going to test these kids, and they're going to prove that these kids are 100% telepathic. They do not make mistakes. And so when you get that, then you get this whole idea of what I've always thought about with the UFO field, is that there's a consciousness connection. Consciousness, according to Max Planck, who created quantum physics, consciousness is primary. Nothing gets behind consciousness. Consciousness is where we got to go. And these kids are going to prove that there is something outside the materialistic paradigm. And once you realize that there's something outside of the materialistic paradigm, it's all going to fall apart, because that's what we believe. Oh, these ships can't get here from other planets because they can't go past the speed of light and all this kind of stuff. And we're going to suddenly realize there's another level, and that's how these beings are moving from here to here. They're not flying through space. They're jumping from one place to another, like through portals. And so this is the most important thing I've seen in 50 years. I knew that before I did the interview, that this was critically important. It is something that if you haven't watched the telepathy tapes, you absolutely have to listen to this thing, that this is on the verge of changing the entire way that we see the world. And we're going to realize there is a non-local aspect of the world, and people can actually read people's minds, read stuff from the field, and talk languages that they never were taught and stuff like that. It's absolutely amazing.
There are some people out there who are claiming that these are fake, that they've debunked them. Have you read that? That's recent.
I went up against the guy from McGill. There was a guy from McGill, and McGill is where the I'll remind you, where the MK Ultra started in Canada. And it's also where Mario Beauregard got kicked out because he was doing ESP stuff, and they said, we're not going to do any spiritual stuff in the neurology lab. And they basically kicked this guy out, a PhD guy, out of the neurology lab at McGill. The guy came to me and he started this thing about, oh, it's all fake and stuff. And that's total nonsense. They get these kids in other rooms. They've run every test they could possibly run except for the Faraday cage. And these kids they've never made mistakes. So I said to the guy, I said, oh, you want to go? I know these people. I can get you in on the experiment. And he said, yeah, well, no, not me. He said, there's a guy in the United States that'll tell you how it's done. I said, I don't want to know how it's done. I want you to sit in the damn chair like the kid, and let's see you do it. We'll get you in the control condition with the kid there. The kid will read the 40 different tests, and you'll get every single number, every single word right. And then let's see you do it. And that was it. Dead silence. Gone. And I came back and I said, are you afraid? Are you backing out now? No answer. And that's the whole thing. People can say all they want about this kind of stuff. This stuff is so amazing when you see these kids. The kid's sitting with a blanket over his head. I mean, come on, how can you fake? These kids can't talk. They're nonverbal autistics. They're like handicapped kids who are in the house all the time. They don't go out of the house. The people thought they were totally dumb and deaf, or the words they used to use for them in the old days. They couldn't communicate. It was only when they started to teach these kids to use keypads. And the one kid said, I'm in here. And this other, holy kid, the kid knows what's going on. And they started to communicate. That's how it worked. Before that, these kids don't talk to anybody. How can you fake it? Like it's just total nonsense. People are just grasping for straws, just like hand waving. There's no way they run these tests. They're running these tests. And I guarantee you this is all going to come. It's not like you get a field where some skeptic gets near the kid and they can't read anymore with these blindfolds and stuff like that. This is going to be, these kids they're not affected by anything. You can put them in a room and they will perform.
Let's move on to another question here. Let's go to T-Bone. He's in New Westminster, by the way.
There you go.
Is there room for nuts and bolts craft?
That's the big debate. Yeah, there are nuts and bolts crafts, but they are conscious. They are alive. That's where everybody wants to go. They think there's an engine. I remember talking to Chris Bledsoe. This is only a couple months ago. I talked to him about it, and I've talked to other people, and I said, Chris, you were on that orb. They were moving you around during that 4 hours you were gone in this glass orb thing. And I said, did you see an engine? He said, Grant, I have never seen an engine. And this is this whole idea. We think there's this engine. We're going to pull the engine out of there. And I refer to it like Leland Stanford was the guy who started Stanford University. He had a son die at 15. He started these seances. He had this dream with his kid as the kid was dying. And his kid says, you got something to live for. You can live for the kids of California, build a university for kids. And he built Stanford University. His brother was also into mediumship back in this 1890, 1870. And he had a turtle fall in one of his mediumship things in Australia. So the question is that an extraterrestrial turtle? They can produce. So whatever, whether it's a ghost or whatever from the other side, they can produce flowers, turtles, stones, and these people can do the same thing. So they can produce crafts, bodies, and the whole idea is they can lower their vibration to come into our environment and then go back again where they came from. And they may be situations where I think they're dropping this stuff. I think all the crashes are basically what Tim Taylor called gifting field, that they're gifting this stuff. Bob Bigelow believes the same thing, that they're actually dropping these things on purpose for whatever reason. So there is a nuts and bolts component, yes, but the whole point is with this thing with flying the craft is the way you fly a craft is you're on the craft and they tell you to touch something. And the weird thing was that I had 36, I've probably got 50 people now. No two people have touched the same thing. And I go, what's the chances of that? That's when Lukatsky said, all UFO sightings are different. And I'm going, that's what's going on. And I went back and looked at the data. Sure enough, everybody, you go on the craft is alive. You touch something, you touch it. Chris Butts will touch a beehive. They give you a switch to flip. They give you a button to push. You sit on the end of a chair. You touch a panel on the wall. Everybody's touching something different. When you touch the craft, you become one with the craft, whatever you think is what the craft does, and you can absolutely go anywhere you want. And the being says to you, as they did with Ron Johnson, and they said to one other woman, they said, where do you want to go? And you say, I want to see the Milky Way from a distance. And they say, okay, Dave, it is within you. Go within yourself. When you can imagine it, then we'll go there. And that's this whole idea that it's the Sufi expression. You see yourself as a puny form when within you is enfolded the entire universe. So there's a singularity at the beginning of the universe, and that singularity may be already here, that all it is mental stuff coming out of the singularity, that there is no out there. The beings I dealt with in Great Britain when I interviewed them through a channel, I said to them, are you extraterrestrial? They said, would you like us to be extraterrestrial? We could do that if you want. We could even take you to our planet. But no, we're not extraterrestrials. We've always been here. You're the visitor. And that's this concept you hear more and more. It may be all here and now. There is no, as Jim Semivan says, there does not appear to be any there. The whole thing is there actually space and time, or is it all one singularity here and it's all mind forms? That's where the disclosure thing comes to the fact that this thing is 1,000 times more complex, that they can pop in and pop out. And these people are telling the same story, this idea that it's within you. And once you imagine it, they say, you look out the window and there's the Milky Way off in the distance. And the guy said, it took 1 second. And the other woman said it was instantaneously and they went across the galaxy, the other one. So you see this whole thing where almost like the phenomenon is allowing these people to remember this stuff. I get it out. Then suddenly the government starts talking about this kind of stuff. And the government is now talking about the fact James Lukatsky's actually admitted it. After my book came out, James Lukatsky said, we've now determined that the phenomena, the propulsion system is a combination of physical and psychic elements, confirming the fact that it's a physical craft, nuts and bolts, but it's conscious. And there's a physical element. That's how you fly the craft, is with your mind.
One final question, 90 seconds. Okay. If someone willingly comes to a place that agrees to be taken, why would whoever is taking them need to take them at all if they were there already to begin with, where they were supposed to be?
Well, it's all a play. It's all a show. I mean, this is all something to raise consciousness. It's not maybe so much for you that you agreed to this to be taken. It's that they want you to tell your story. Every experiencer, I'll ask them, do you think they want you to tell the story? Yeah. Did they force you to write that book? Yeah. And then they want the story out because they want to raise consciousness. They want to raise, it's not so much for that person. There's a deal between them and the aliens, but it's the idea of telling the story. Like Sherry Wild tells her story where she's actually tried to commit suicide a couple of times. She was so distressed by her experience. But when it came down to it, she knew she had to write this book, and it was called The Forgotten Promise. And they said to her, Sherry, have you forgotten the promise that you made? You agreed to come into the world at this time in this place, to write this book to raise consciousness. That's what's happening. All these things. It's just a big show. It's just a big circus. It's the Jesus circus. You make the miracles. You do all this sort of stuff, and then once everybody knows who you are, then you perform the miracles. If Jesus had not performed the miracles, you never heard of the guy. This is what they're doing. They're just raising consciousness and doing all this really weird stuff that people are going, what is going on? And making movies and trying to figure it out, and just raising consciousness for people to realize it's not the world you thought it was. It's way different. It's much more complex and elaborate than the way we think it is. And that's what you find when the more you study ufology, the more you find that it is more complex and you don't even know what's going on. It gets so complex.
Grant, it's always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. Thank you very much for coming back on the show, and we'll talk to you very soon.
We'll be there to visit you and talk to the Sasquatches, hopefully.
That's exactly it. Coming up on Spaced Out Radio, Swamp Dweller, then Extra Small, Lee Strauss has the Cryptid and UFO Q&A coming on up. We'll be right back, everybody.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we are clear. I'm going to step away for a minute. Izzy Beth, how you doing? Good to see you. And Chris, I'll be right back, everybody. bring in extra small. Happening extra small.
Well, I just collapsed my chair. Okay, that's better.
That's good.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Dave, how you doing?
I'm good, bud. I'm good. It's always great when we get Grant on.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal guy. I've been watching him for years.
Yeah, I love him. Can't wait till he comes back on. Excuse me 1 second here. Thank you to Big Dog, Gizmo, Cosmic Joe, Bob G ×4, T-Bone ×2, Richard, and the other Bob for the great super chats tonight. Teen, how are you? Good to see you. And we're going to come back in about 8 seconds. Here we go with the third and final hour of Space Stuff. Big stuff. Oh, especially wearing your own tinfoil bodysuit. Oh, how sexy is that? Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network, our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The SOR Space Travelers Club, of course, you need the password, and the Desert Clam has set the password for tonight. I don't even know what this is. Nick Themeron. Nick Themeron is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. This experience I'm going to describe has taken a while for me to get together and write down. I have experienced a few paranormal things, but this is the craziest one of all of them. It takes place in Yosemite National Park in August of 2017 with my two best friends, Zach and Andrew. Zach had worked that summer as a parking agent at Glacier Point and was familiar with the area. The employee housing he was given was a house in Wawona with two other guys. Andrew and I were visiting for the week and had each been to Yosemite before. One of the nights we decided to watch the sunset over Chilnwalna Falls. It was a nice hike, and Zach had done it before. The trail was about 4 miles to the top with about a 2,000-foot elevation gain. We brought food and decided to hike up and take a swim and eat at the pools on top of the falls. We set out a couple of hours before sunset. As we approached the top portion, we were about a half mile to the top of the falls, where a guy about our age, probably early 20s, ran up to us from bushes frantically asking for help. This guy said his friend had fallen 50 feet off a cliff and had a shattered femur. Zach was used to this after working in the park all summer. He had many injuries and was used to it. The man did not have cell reception, but I did, so I called 911 and reported the incident, requesting search and rescue. After a few minutes, we decided we wanted to walk and continue the hike after search and rescue assured us they would be there soon with a helicopter. We told the guy help was on the way and continued the next half mile up to the top of the falls. When we got there, it was a picture-perfect scene, a beautiful sunset as we swam and ate. When we got an amazing show, as we saw the helicopter land to pick up the injured guy we just encountered right below us. I am a private pilot and Air Force aviator, so I loved every second of watching the helicopter land on the mountainside. After the sunset, we began to hike down and past the spot with the injured guy, and search and rescue were taking care of him. We had a brief encounter with them. They thanked us for calling it in. It was now dark out and we continued the hike down. There was not much moonlight. It was dark, so we used our phones as flashlights to see the trail. This is where the story truly gets interesting. The top of the hike was switchbacks with a steep incline on the right and a steep decline on the left with shrubs and trees. It was too steep to hike down, hence the switchbacks. About 1 mile into the hike down, Zach was in front with a light. I was second, also shining my light, and Andrew was in the back. Zach was shining his light ahead and saw something sticking out from behind a tree. It was about 15 feet ahead of us, just off the right of the path, and instinctively shined the light at it. That is, whatever it was exposed itself from the tree and ran across the path, down to the left and down the steep grade. It ran on 2 feet and resembled some sort of humanoid. It was a little shorter than us and very clearly had 2 arms and 2 legs, but it moved in an inhuman way. It kind of resembled a person. It had a head and its limbs appeared to be just skin. No clothes on at all. We all 3 saw it, and we stopped dead in our tracks. We continued shining the light to where it ran, down the left side of the mountain, but did not see anything after it ran down. We were terrified, none of us really knowing what to say because we had no idea what we had seen. The worst part was that we had another 3 miles to hike down and 1.5 miles from the trailhead to Zach's house, all while knowing that this creature could be stalking us and was near. Luckily, we made it to his house terrified and exhausted, but without harm. Whatever it was must have been as scared as we were. My question is, if anybody has ever had a similar experience in that area. I have done my research, and my best guess would be like a skinwalker or something like that, but it did not try to lure us into the forest with it, so I am unsure. We had a subsequent experience a couple of years later in Tioga Pass, right outside of the Tioga gate of the park. We were camping in a closed area in Tioga. In the middle of the night, I woke up to go pee, and before exiting the tent, I saw an orb about 5 feet in front of the tent, floating across with a bright light. I do not think it was a person because Zach, Andrew, and I all saw the orb floating across, and there was not anyone around us. Our friend Jackson was also in the tent, and in the morning he told us he felt rocks getting thrown at the tent all night, along with hearing footsteps near. Does anybody have any similar experiences? I would love to know. We all know what we saw, and we all know it was not human.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another crazy, spooky story. If you want more just like that, all you got to do is go to his YouTube channel, hit subscribe, ring that bell. Swamp Dweller has thousands of stories for you for free. Time for Extra Small, Lee Strauss. Here we go, Lee Strauss. How you doing, my friend? Good to see you.
Man, Dave, it's been 2 weeks since I've been doing, since I was on Element 115, and I'm really sorry, everybody, but I am so glad to be back. And here I am once again, another wonderful Friday on your show as well.
All right. It's always good to have you here, my friend, as we hang on out and talk about the weird and strange. I was getting ready to go into the forest, and then all of a sudden we got hit with another snowfall. And
I saw that.
Our 4th false spring so far.
I saw that. You guys were posting pictures from up there, and I was like, holy cow, the trucks are getting stuck and everybody's spinning around not knowing what to do.
Oh, yeah. It happens. I know there's not much more of it, but it is good for the forest. That's what I will say. It's great for the forest, especially when it's been so dry here the last couple of years. And, we got a lot of snow still. So I like it. Yeah. I don't complain because I would sooner have a little bit extra snow than breathing in forest fire smoke come summertime. So that's just me.
Every summer, guys, I mean, like it or not, there's great, beautiful forests up in Canada and in Washington, but we always get the smoke from you guys. I don't know what it is. Are you blowing it down here? You got some
Yes.
giant windmills or something, but we always get Canadian smoke in Washington.
Well, that's just the way we like to do things, you know. That's just the way we like to do things. So, I mean, it is quite okay. You know,
We're
better
not blowing anything back at you guys. We're getting it all.
better you than me. That's all I'm going to say. Hey, we're friendly. We share.
Yeah, that's the good thing, right? I mean, we do share. We share and share alike. Well, Mr. Dave, here in Washington State, there is a county called Skamania County, and it's on the peninsula over here on the Olympic Peninsula, and there's quite a bit of activity over in this location. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that tonight.
Well, get right into it. I'm intrigued.
Okay, so there's a lake called Lena Lake, and it is deep in the forest. So just to let you guys know, the Olympic Peninsula is laid out. Basically, there's a road that goes all the way around, right? And in the center of that, there are some dirt roads that go in there, but primarily there's really no homes on the interior. It's pretty desolate, and it's, void of most people, except for people that are going in to hike or camp, that sort of thing. There's a couple, hot springs in there that you can go and visit. But for the majority, there's just hikers and campers in these locations out there. It's desolate. It's actually hard to get to, even for me, who, I live in Tacoma, Washington. And to get out there, it takes me a good 3 hours to get into some of these locations out there. So, and we're talking many miles on a dirt road, to get into the center of this place. But anyway, there's a place called Lena Lake. And I didn't know this at the time, guys. I've hiked up to Lena Lake twice. And I've always said to myself, when I got up into this location, Dave, I need to get on the other side of that outlet and check that area out. I don't know why, but it's drawn me in every time. The 2 times that I went, I should say, not every time. The 2 times that I went, it's like pulling me over there. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go on this hike. I'm going to spend the night. And so I just happened to type it into Google. Okay. Bigfoot, has there been any sightings of Bigfoot in this location? And apparently, Dave, there have been several in this location. Lo and behold, right? And so, what it's like when you get the calling. It's like, hey, you need to go there. You not necessarily know why, but you need to go there. You just drawn to an area. And it could be from looking on Google Earth or whatever the case may be. But I'm going there this weekend. Now, there's been a sighting that I want to talk about where there was 2 campers that went up there. Actually, a mother and her son went to the camping area, and they woke up in the morning and went down to the water, and they noticed these deep impressions in the mud on the lake that were probably 6 to 7 inches deep impressions. And the kid was about 160 pounds, and he was jumping up and down and could not make those deep impressions, those as deep impressions in the mud that there were already. Now, the foot size was about the same size as he was. However, those footprints, he said, were at least a good 4 inches deeper than he could make, even by jumping.
Oh, my.
So this animal has the same size feet as he did, but was making deeper, much deeper impressions in the mud. And so at the time, they took some pictures and they put it up on the BFRO. And reported this. And this happened back in the fall of 2013. And in another location very close nearby, probably only about 5 miles away, there was some fishermen that decided to go up the river on the Hamma River and they were just doing some day fishing. They weren't camping. They were going to head out, that night. And so they're up there, they're doing their fishing and walking up and down the river, trying to catch trout and that. And all of a sudden he hears a noise. This gentleman hears a noise, and all of a sudden a big splash. And he looks over to his left, noticing the splash in this big rock. And he said the rock must have been 300 pounds that was thrown from the opposite side of the river near him, out in front of him in the river. 300 pounds, he said. Just his guesstimate, but, and that makes me worried. I'm going to end up being out there by myself. Yeah, I'm a little bit, concerned, but, I do have, like I've said before, I do carry my pointy stick. But that is a concern because there has been so many, reports of Bigfoot in the area. So I got to thinking, all right, in Washington state, how many counties or how many states, in fact, in Washington, but the U.S. are protecting Bigfoot or know about Bigfoot, at least put it in some kind of legislature or, in a bill to say, hey, we protect Bigfoot in our area. There's been so many states that have put forth legislature to put it in, for saving Bigfoot or for protecting Bigfoot in these areas. But guess what? Washington is the only state that has done it. In fact, Skamania County considers itself to be a Bigfoot refuge.
That's actually kind of cool.
It is.
Here's the thing that I love about this, Lee, and thank you for sharing that story. I wish more communities, if you go away from the cities, and a lot of people congregate in the suburbs of the cities. That's why they're overpopulated. Okay. And a lot of these people do not travel to small towns, even my small town. But if more towns actually understood that being known as a UFO town or a haunted town or a cryptid town, do they not realize the amount of tourism revenue that they would be bringing to their area? You take, for instance, the Mothman Festival in Point Pleasant. They do a 5-day or a week-long festival, and that in those 5 days, that town creates between $2 and $5 million in tourism revenue. Roswell does the same thing. Every year they have their Roswell days, to celebrate the big crash. What happens? People want to go there. They want to spend money. They want to get their toy UFOs, their toy aliens, their books and their stickers and their T-shirts and their socks. They want all of that. That is good for a community, right? So the fact that this area is actually promoting that fact, I think it's great. I do. I wish our town, the town I live in, if they weren't so uptight, shall we say, I think it would be absolutely wonderful for this town here, because we are right along the Gold Rush Trail. Let's promote how haunted we are. A lot of people in our region claim to have alien abductions. Let's promote that. People, including loggers, a lot of loggers in this town have had encounters with Sasquatch. Let's promote that. You know what it does? It does nothing bad. Nothing.
That's correct. The biggest thing for them is, right, they don't want to be the laughing stock, right, of the town or the city or the county. But the other thing is that it will drive people into those locations to spend money. They're going to want to go camping there. They're going to want to go do things with their family there and go look for Bigfoot or the Mothman or whatever the case may be in those areas. It's a really good thing. I wonder, there are towns and there are cities that have festivals every year, right? But it seems like the legislature don't want to put anything forward necessarily because they don't want to be a laughing stock. It seems like they're concerned about their image, right? So in California, it was brought to, I can't remember what county it was in California, but there was a bill in place to, go ahead and make Bigfoot the cryptid of the county. And they shot it down because they didn't want to be a laughing stock, but it's ridiculous. I think to get more people, I mean, what's it going to hurt to put a Bigfoot on your, when you're driving into the town, to put a Bigfoot on your billboard as you're driving into the town? And I think it would definitely drive people there, not only to possibly witness these things, but to have a good time and the atmosphere that it would create. I think it's a fun, great atmosphere to create. Absolutely.
I don't know why more towns don't do it. It really, I mean, look, everybody right now is hurting for money, hurting for revenue. You know what happens when you bring in something like this? People come to your town, they spend money. It helps the small businesses. It helps everybody. They eat at the restaurants. They get their camping gear there, their firewood, their supplies. Maybe they stay at a hotel room. All right. They tour your local museums, your local parks. They go into the wilderness to find all this weird stuff. And I think it's absolutely fantastic that they do this. Okay. And it's free money. What a lot of people don't realize is tourism capital is free capital to that community. You don't need to invest in it. All you have to do is buy into a theory.
Exactly.
People will come. Harrison Hot Springs in British Columbia, known as the Sasquatch capital of North America. Okay. That place is very well known for a couple of things. Number one, it is extremely picturesque. Number two, the Sasquatch that have been seen all around the Chehalis and Harrison area along the river and the lake, the UFOs in the sky, even though they don't really promote that. But you can't go anywhere in Harrison without seeing or encountering something to do with a Sasquatch. And it's perfect. And the best part about it is they love it. They love it. Many don't believe. Many think it's just a big hoax. But there are many more who believe that this is a wonderful tourist attraction in order to bring people in. And you think about it. Even if you get 10 groups, say 10 groups of 2 the entire year coming to look for Sasquatch, they're staying in hotels. They're eating at your restaurants. They're buying their supplies there. And each of those groups is going to spend at least $1,000 to $2,000 in a weekend there. That's free money. Free money. We're going to continue on right after this.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
Nicole, where have you been hiding? I know when she's silent. One thing I know about Nicole Sackich is that when she is silent, You know, and you've got older kids, but remember when your kids were small and it was always dangerous when it was quiet?
Yep, you knew they were getting into something they shouldn't be into.
Mm-hmm.
That's always the case, Dave.
Yeah. What were you doing, Nicole? What were you doing?
What were you getting into?
Uh-huh. It's 1:30 there, Nicole. What were you doing?
I'd like to talk about the calling too.
What calling?
Well, I'm calling it the calling.
Oh, I love it. Well, don't tell me about it. Don't tell me about it. Let's bring it back when we come back, man.
All right, not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So the end of May, huh? You're going to be able to take some time, a day or two off?
I should be able to.
Uh-huh.
I should be able to. I'll arrange it to get at least one day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, definitely come up there.
That's right. It's going to be an extra small time here in British Columbia.
Oh, wow. An extra small time. So what was the name of that, the plane crash again? Flight
21.
That's right. I'll have to look into that a little bit. Even if I could get some names from some of the passengers and that sort of thing.
Oh, we can get that for you.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yes, Bigfoot does like streaking. Strawberry Quick Tim was the bomb.
I never really cared for it.
Oh, I liked it.
I mean, I would have it, but it wasn't my favorite. Chocolate Quick was my thing. Okay,
Here's
an important question. What's your favorite color of Jell-O?
What?
Jell-O.
My favorite color of Jell-O must have been green.
I've always been an orange guy.
No. Orange is no good. It's like toxic waste.
No way, man. True story. True story. I had to go to get my knee. Oh, this is going back, a long time ago now, because 30 years ago now. My God. Hard to believe. I had to get my knee fixed, right? Because my ACL and my MCL. And go in for surgery. They tell you, we need you here at 8 a.m. Don't eat anything the night before. At 4:30 in the afternoon, I was scheduled for surgery. Then they bumped my surgery. So I end up literally in our hospital, they give you Jell-O. With every meal, you get some Jell-O. And I can't eat. And I said, just let me smell it, because I was so hungry at this time. Like, just let me smell it. And she opens up the tray, and be damned if there isn't orange Jell-O in there. So I said, leave the Jell-O out, because when I get back from surgery and recovery, I'll eat it. And finally went for surgery at about 7:00 that night. Hadn't eaten, nothing to drink. Get back to my room after recovery at I think around 12:30. And I'm starving. I fall asleep for about half an hour, and I'm starving. I grab the orange Jell-O, because they're all in those nice little cubes that they cut them in. I take like just a little bit of one, like it was the first food I'd had in months. Take just a little nibble, and it is the most heaven in my mouth. It was heaven. Philip Blair, how you doing? And then I puked it all up from the anesthesia. All right, 10 seconds here. Big thank you to Big Dog Gizmo, Bob G ×4, T-Bone ×2, Richard, and Joe, and the other Bob for the super chats. Love you guys. Thank you very much. Here we go in 7 seconds. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Final half hour coming at you. We got extra small Lee Strauss and the Q&A. Want to remind all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go, Lee Strauss. You want to talk about a subject, what do you call it again?
The calling.
What is the calling, my friend?
You know, when all this stuff started happening with me, with the abductions and that sort of thing, I started getting interested in certain places, and I didn't know why. That I felt that I needed to go to certain places, certain locations, and back then I was using Google Earth, and I still do, right? But back then it was like, I need to go to this location, and I didn't know why I needed to go there, but I felt like I needed to go there. And so I would go. And then later on, when I started filming and doing all of that, then I would take my cameras with me, and then I'd go to these different locations and film. And when I would film, I would always capture something, right, in the footage. And then I realized that this isn't just sporadic. This wasn't just something that, just happened by coincidence. This was something that was purposeful. And so I started to realize that no matter when I went to a location, I might pick it 3 years or 4 years out or whatever, and finally get to the location and set up equipment. And I would capture stuff. And it got to the point, Dave, where I started having interactions with the things that I would capture in the sky. They would shut down equipment. They would, make my monitors go off, or drain batteries, or this or that, or drain other people's batteries that were there. Not just mine, other people's as well. And I started to realize it's like I'm being called to these locations, just like I was called to that certain location with Jackie on Mount Adams, and we went there. But this location that I'm going to this weekend is another one of what I would call the callings. And I started to realize that whatever situation ends up, it's the way it's supposed to be, obviously, duh. But there's something supernatural about this. This is not just, I'm going to get in my car, I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to get these things. That's because that's what I need at my house to cook dinner or whatever. These things that I feel like I need to do in these locations I need to go, I feel that there's a purpose for it. And I don't understand what that purpose is at the time before I go, but once I get there, I get it. It's like another puzzle piece in the puzzle to hopefully explain, what it is, the answers that I'm looking for. And Dave, I've been scared before going to a location, and I've done it anyway. It's tough to do, but it's something when you feel like you're called, you go.
And that's the way I feel about Flight 21. It is calling me there. And this isn't the first time I heard this. You know, a good friend of this show, a guy named Nelson Dellis, he's almost died on Everest 3 times.
Mm.
He's tried Everest 4 times, never been able to summit. But he told me a story one time about how the mountain keeps calling him, and that he'll wake up and it's calling, like, come back, come back. And he didn't know whether that was a death wish or if it was that it was his time to summit.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people have this. Okay. Nicole Sackich, we brought her up earlier, you know, researcher. She actually got called to one of her UFO areas, came back, and she can't find her dog. Literally finds her dog whimpering upstairs. Now, she locked her house. She drove away to her area for UFOs. She spotted one. Okay. She drove home, gets home. Her dog Buster is literally upstairs cowering like there's something wrong. Pissed all over the place. She goes back to her desk, and there is a pile of granite rocks that were not there before.
Oh.
From her location.
Wow.
So something apported those rocks into her location when she wasn't there. I remember getting a phone call after she saw that. She was so happy, she was crying on the phone to get this incredible message from the beings above. So the fact that you're getting this calling is very recognizable to me. And my advice to you would be, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. Be safe. Be safe. But, and I know you're that kind of guy, but just go with it. See where it takes you, because they are obviously preparing for you for something that you need to be there. It's like I have been told when I start my study this year in about a month and a half, okay, I have been shown that my first 6 times there, all they want me to do is put a lawn chair on the ground behind my vehicle and sit and watch. Now, they haven't given me a timeline. They basically said, you'll know when it's time to go. So I might be there 20 minutes. I might be there 6 hours or longer. After those 6 times, I don't know. I have told them that I will be bringing up certain people. Okay. And I've passed names. Okay. I want you to come up there. I want to show you that area. What about Lee? Yeah, that's fine. Well, the one person they have said that they don't want me bringing up there is my son.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think I'm going to abide by that. That's safety. But here's the other thing, Lee. There's 2 things that are issue with that. Now, not with my boy, but with this whole calling. I have told them that I will be armed. Okay, because in that area you need a pointy stick.
Yeah.
Okay, and I've made the promise that if any Sasquatch are around or anything weird around, I will not raise a gun to that. But that is for my protection from the wild animals out there. They're cool with that.
Yeah.
I told them that we would be filming. They're cool with that. But there's 2 things that, one that's kind of older and one that's like recent, is in the last few days. Number 1, I asked, am I safe? They have not answered that question.
Ooh.
Number 2, all of a sudden, I've got visions of sitting behind my Jeep and then packing up, doing a thing like they're supposed to. But the forward-looking camera gets a photo of a dog man or filming a dog man. And dog man scares the daylights out of me. literally scares the daylights out of it. I never want to run into one of those.
No,
So-
I don't.
So the question is, though, is that imagination? See, everybody thinks I'm like really heavy into the woo, but you still have to be logical. Okay. You and I have had this conversation privately. You still have to have logic and discernment. I hate the word skepticism, even though I use it sometimes. But I think logic and discernment are a lot more palatable. Look at that. Logic, discernment, palatable in one sentence.
Wow.
Beautiful. That's my journalism degree at work right there. Okay. But the thing that I'm saying here is I don't know if that's my imagination, because the Dogman topic has come up a lot recently in shows, or is it something that is actually going to happen? Because it seemed very, very vivid. So which one is it? I don't know. But you have to investigate it.
Yep.
It's just like with you. If you're getting that feeling, just run with it. Just let the phenomena take over.
Yep.
And you say, okay, what do you need from me? How do you feel about that?
Well, it's going to a place well, I've been to the lake before, but it's the fact that I'm crossing the boundary, so to speak, because this trail where I'm going has been blocked off. They stuck logs and sticks and everything. It's like they tried to hide this trail. And I know about it because I crossed that barrier before and went down to the outlet. Now I'm not only going down to the outlet, but I'm crossing over the log jam to the other side that has been calling me. And people don't go over there. They just don't, because it's the trail is made to look like there's nothing beyond that point or that split in the trail. Like there's nothing there, just a bunch of brush, because that's what they put there. And it makes me wonder, why did they do that? Why did they block that area? Do they not want people going over there? And that's what has me a little bit concerned, especially when I see reports that there's Bigfoot in the area. Does trail maintenance not want people to venture over there because that's their location? That's Bigfoot's location. Is something going on over there? Well, I'm going to go find out tomorrow. And yes, I'm a little bit nervous about it, but we'll see what happens when I get there. I plan to build a fire, and if I have to stay up all night to capture something on film, I'll have to do that. But I'm bringing several different types of cameras and audio equipment for listening and that, and so we'll see what we capture. Yes, I'm nervous, but that doesn't matter. It's calling me, so I know what I'm supposed to do.
You nervous? Is it the fact of running in that you're going alone?
Yeah, typically I haven't gone alone backpacking since I was in my 30s. So, and I stopped when this phenomenon started happening with me, is when I stopped going backpacking alone.
Are you seriously heading out there alone?
Yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't do that.
I'm doing that.
I would never go to 21 alone.
Well, I'm going alone. People know where I'm headed, so I feel comfortable with that, and it's the calling is enough to get me to go alone. Even if something is way out of whack when I get out there, I'm going to film when I can. I'm going to try to stay the night. I've got flares to start a fire, because the wood and the moisture in the air is such that I'm going to need something like a flare to get a fire going for myself. But I don't think anything negative is going to happen, but I am a little bit worried.
How would you do such a thing? The forest is dangerous even without the monsters coming out.
Yes. I mean, the first thing I look at is, okay, where am I setting up my hammock? Is there a widowmaker around that's going to fall on me? I mean, I take things into consideration. I've been part of search and rescue when I lived up north, and there's a lot of things that I learned through, being with them. So I'm pretty conscious about what's around me and that sort of thing, and anything that might hurt me. They always say, of course, don't go out alone. What if you fall and twist your ankle? And it's dangerous, but you can do it. And I did it till I was like 36. From the time that I could drive, I've been hiking in the woods by myself a lot, backpacking, camping, all of that.
Good times. Good times. Well, as long as you have people knowing where you're going, when you're back, and you report in and you report out.
Yep.
Just be safe. How far away are you adventuring from your vehicle?
So yeah, that's a good thing. It'll be probably a good 4 miles.
Yeah, I'm not that guy. You're one of them in shape guys, okay? I'm the kind of guy where if I'm getting chased by a Bigfoot, I'm going to have to ask him to pause for a minute so I could get the oxygen back.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too. I don't think it didn't run through my mind. Like, holy crap, if we do get a situation like that where he's testing me and he's pushing me out of there, I've got a bunch of switchbacks to go down before I get to my vehicle, right? So I can imagine me taking the switchbacks and him just running straight down the hill. I'm done for. But and that'll probably be this.
I don't know.
We had talked, Dave, a while back about me coming up there and going to Flight 2021, and the fact that I would try to stay, or I would stay out overnight there in that location. And you were adamant, like, heck no, there's no way I'm going to do that. Blah, 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 blah. But yeah. And truthfully, I haven't been out there, so I don't know what it feels like. And it really has to do with the feel, right? If you are feeling things that feel threatening, you're going to leave, right? But if you don't feel those things, you can push through. But if the hair stands up on the back of your neck and you're getting the heebie-jeebies, you might as well leave. And I have to listen to that. At the end of the day, you have to listen to that.
And that's where the discernment comes in, right?
Right.
You have to pay attention to your surroundings. You have to pay attention to what's happening around you. And if you get that feeling that you're being stalked or being followed, don't be that moron who goes another 200, 300 feet. Just say thank you and turn right around and start going back.
Yeah. I can't tell you, Dave, how many videos I've seen of people out in the woods. They're in a tent alone with their GoPro or their phone camera, and they're videoing themselves as the tent is being hit, or as something is walking around their tent, or sticks are being thrown at their tent. And they're freaking out inside their tent.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to be that guy too. It's happened before, but when I was with Jackie, but for some reason I kept falling asleep. So we're just going to have to see what the night brings.
You're going to find out. You're
sure.
totally going to find out. And you know, it's something where you're going to have to figure out this on your own. I mean, how long are you going for?
Just one night.
Well,
It'll be
would do it. Me personally, I would not do it. That's just me, though.
Yeah. And so as you say that right now, your voice is going to be ringing through my head all night tomorrow.
Well, you know what? Do you have cell phone service up there?
None. And, you know, I got rid of my spot as well. So I don't even have a spot anymore. But hopefully that'll all change here in the near future. Yeah. But not soon enough.
Well, just make sure you carry a few extra rounds.
Oh, yeah.
Bring a couple of pointy sticks then.
An extra flare or two.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. That's what it's all about. But you have to be careful with the calling.
Yeah.
That is one thing you do have to do is you have to be careful with the calling whenever they are calling you. But good luck to you, Lee. Good luck to you.
Absolutely.
And if Lee's not here next week, we know why.
Yep.
Special thanks to everybody listening in at Lord Back Home, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone on chat, YouTube, it's Facebook, Street, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Space Down Radio. Remember, this show is copyright for Space Down Radio and SCR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, it's your mom. Yes, the Woo train has gone for the night. My friends, we shall fight again. It's visible. Digits never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, you go. Good night.
So we had some.
What's that?
Oh, so we had some people asking what a spot is, and I wanted to say it's just like it's a locator beacon, satellite locator beacon. In case you can hit that button, and then it basically sends a alert to let people know that you're in trouble and you're lost. So that's what that does. But I don't have one anymore. But enough people know where I'm going, so it should be good. I told my mother that if I don't contact her by 12 on Sunday, that there's a problem.
Yeah, you're one of them early risers. How dense?
I'll be up by 5.
How dense is the trails going in and out?
Dense? Well, There should be people. I would imagine there might be people going up there during the day. There's a couple spots on the other side of the lake where people can camp. I don't know if there'll be anybody up there this weekend. I just want to basically stay out of sight, though, as well. I don't want those people knowing that where I'm at on the other side. And then, but even when I went to that lake, Dave, there's this overlook, like this big cliff rock. And you look across the lake, there's all these logs across the lake. And I think I remember hearing a report about a Sasquatch walking out on those logs to get to the water as well. Yep. That somebody saw Sasquatch from that vantage point. So the other side of that lake is something where I need to get to, and that's what I'm doing.
I love it. I love it. That is wonderful. I wouldn't do it, but I love it.
I'm going to video the whole thing, right? And I'll put it together and put it on YouTube. So Trout Lake's a good place. North Cascades. No sat phone, my friends. Yeah. You working tomorrow, Dave?
I am.
Oh boy.
Yeah, almost time to go. Almost time to go.
Yeah. Well, the Trout Lake that I'm thinking about, there is a Trout Lake, yes, near Mount Adams, but there also is a Trout Lake up in north Washington.
All right, Lee, stick around for a minute. The rest of you, I'm going to say goodnight because I am going to bed. I'm tired. So tired. Thank you tonight to Bob G with 4, T-Bone with 2, Richard, Gizmo, Big Dog, the other Bob, and Joe, the Cosmic One, for the wonderful super chats and love tonight. I believe Sweet Robbie G will be in here in the next couple of days. Maybe he's taking a weekend off. I'm not sure. You'll find out tomorrow. But I will be back on Monday with Lon Strickler, his amazing beard, and that's when I'll be back on the air. I'm tired. Can't even think. All right, everybody. You have a good one. Lee, I'll call you on your phone. Okay? All right. Talk to you later, guys. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.